Okay, it is 5 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 38, Section 18, and Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body. This meeting of the Select Board will be conducted both in person and via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. For this meeting, members of the public and committee members may attend the meeting in person. For those who wish to do so remotely. For those who are not in person, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Pursuant to MGL 7C 38, Section 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body, who may transmit the meeting through any medium. The beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. This meeting is being recorded by CTSB, by the town of Great Barrington, by the Berkshire Edge, Berkshire Eagle, and other may record it. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items of those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for the discussion to the extent permitted by law. Rich, you wanted to say something?
I just wanted to say, hello, everyone. I have been listening to all of the meetings that you've all been going through, and I'm well versed with the binder, although this is the first time I'm here physically. I just wanted you all to know that. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Okay, so tonight we have a number of things to go over. First, we'll go over, we'll start with the operating. We have some things to finish on the DPW. Actually, the entire DPW, except for parks. But let's start with the finance committee finishing up under the police. If you recall, the select board by a 4-1 vote voted the $183,050 for the police capital request. The finance committee had 2 tie votes and decided that they would try it tonight when Rich was back. So, Bill, go right ahead.
Well, actually, I'm going to, because I'm remote, I'm just gonna, probably might be easier for Ann to make the motion, so I'm gonna defer to her on this. I'll let her take the first crack at this one.
Happy to do so. Can I just ask just a procedural question? The committee cannot have a split vote? Like it's not allowed?
A split vote would be no, a no vote. You
Right.
can have a split vote,
Oh, I see.
but that would be no recommendation.
No recommendation.
And the
right.
problem is that the finance committee's recommendation, although we're not doing it tonight, when we get past the public hearing,
Mhm.
if you split it, that means no.
Mhm.
That means it doesn't go to the town meeting.
Okay,
So tonight, yeah, you want to split it tonight, that's fine if that's how you end up, although it's pretty hard for 5 people.
so if the finance committee votes no on something, it doesn't go to the town meeting?
It's really your budget.
I
You gave
sort of-
us, oh, we're now.
I feel like in the past things,
We're having a pretty
Yeah,
close
I mean,
meeting, that's
I
how we've
guess-
always done it.
yeah, I just feel like I've been at town meetings where there've been items that the finance committee has not recommended that are still on the agenda.
We'll find more about
Let's
that.
find out about that.
Yeah,
but
since-
so we
since
need to
none of us are
know,
sure.
right.
Well, right now you have 5 people.
No,
so
I
it
got
shouldn't be
that,
an
right,
issue.
okay. I guess, do we have a motion on the police budget? I guess, to be honest, I think there's some clarification here. We did ask, Chief Stewart to go back and look at the possibility of 1 cruiser lasting 1 more year, so that we would do 2 next year potentially in the budget. Did
Chief
that,
Stewart is not here tonight, so
but do we have any information on that?
I haven't seen anything.
Did we have a discussion on the radios?
Can we do one thing at a
Oh, I'm
time?
sorry.
So, okay,
We didn't know how old the vehicle was, do you remember?
yeah, I don't. Adam, go ahead, Adam.
Hey, everybody, I'm just catching up from the last meeting, which I missed. I know the question in regards to the second cruiser and That one is a 2020. It's a Ford Responder. It's due for replacement this year. It was one of the cruisers that we spent a lot of time waiting for during that whole kind of COVID issue. So it came to us late, and because of that, the cruiser is in great shape with essentially low miles for its service years and low hours. So the anticipation was to move forward and still replace the car, but potentially keep it with the anticipation of getting our staffing up to where it should be and then needing that for patrol.
So can I ask a question? So it's a want, it's not a need, is that correct?
It's not needed at this time, though.
So it's a good running vehicle.
What it is we saw the window of opportunity was right now to replace it and retain it. If that isn't a possibility from the financial aspect, from all your folks' point of view, we'll have to reassess it next year when it will be definitely due.
Okay, so it's just a want.
I mean, I guess I'll jump in, yeah, I appreciate your being, upfront with us about that. I think this is a year, as you probably gathered, that we are really struggling with the budget, particularly, the capital budget. So if I am going to make a motion, I would like to make a motion that we approve the police budget, but with replacing just one cruiser this year.
Second.
Okay,
Any further
I
discussion?
have a question. You said budget, you're talking about capital requests, correct?
I'm sorry, yes, it's,
Okay.
good
I just
point,
want to- I
yes.
just want to clarify.
So, just a question, would that reduce the 140 to 70, or are they differential amount for the different vehicles?
No, I would simply ask that if you're going to reduce this by one car, reduce it by exactly half. Those numbers
Okay,
were
that's,
respect a little higher just for each one, but yeah, they're the same.
okay, so, do I have to withdraw my motion in order to clarify it?
Yeah,
Okay, okay. To clarify the motion to approve the capital request of $113,050 for the police budget. Capital request.
Second.
Any further
Oh,
discussion?
it-
I still want to go up to those
Hold on, Ann.
shields. I'm still not sold on 26.3. The radios I see,
Yeah,
the radios I think are obviously very important. The shields I think is a want. I mean, I'm not sure after seeing the pictures of them. I want our police people safe, of course, but I think that that's a want, and I don't think I just don't think it's absolutely necessary.
yeah.
May I-
Agree with that.
May I comment? I also was thinking about the shields, but I'm going with the experts who were training with them and using them. And my concern is the officers, if there's even a slight ability to protect some part of them. And they're saying it's a useful tool, the people that professionally tested it in the field. I think that we ought to approve that part, just because I'm thinking anything we can do for officer safety, we ought to do,
I
if
think-
they're saying so.
Well, I think the chief mentioned that they do have bulletproof vests. So I think there's a big amount of protection for them.
All right, I'm interrupting. I'll probably won't be the first time tonight. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
I'm
But,
sorry, I'll try to
yeah,
watch.
I will just express my view that I would support a capital request for the police at the 183,000 less the 70,000. I would support the full amount for the shields and the radios. I don't feel I'm in any position to evaluate the need for the shields or the efficacy of the shields. Same with the radios. I think the police, Adam, I guess, I'm sorry, I shouldn't call him Adam. But Mr. Carlotta has been very, I think, very flexible and open with, by acknowledging that the second cruiser is not an urgent need. So I would support the other two requests. plus the one car.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Madonna. I think the shields would be great to have, but not really this year. I don't see it as a totally urgent, request. I think that I agree, that's good to know that the cruiser might be delayed by a year, hopefully. Kind of that's where I am on it. I mean, given the size of the capital budget and the cost we are gonna be facing this year, I just think we have to be very, very, strict about every one of those lines here.
Adam, go ahead. Yes, his hand.
Yeah, just real quick, thank you, Phil. No need for titles here. You can always call me Adam. We'll start right with the shields. Again, I tested them. I work with the company when they came out for the demo. They work with the team from the county. They're going to buy some. Lennox already has. We thought it was a super good product. We thought would be very useful, and it's a life-saving measure. So if you want to describe something as what I want it, absolutely, it's a want. I would want to have life-saving equipment for myself and the personnel here. And then
So are
second,
you saying it's an absolute need?
we're describing things as wants and needs.
What if you
it's
didn't have
both.
them?
I think I missed the last question. Go ahead.
I said, what if you didn't have them? Could you still be effective as a police force?
Yeah, sure. So I got your question, but yeah.
Sorry, or is it just finance at this point?
We've already voted, but
Yeah.
if Ann wants to recognize you, that's fine.
Do you mind if I just
Please.
comment? I mean, I guess I'll just, put my sense in here, which I think suggests how the vote's gonna go. I actually feel that 26,000 for a safety measure, I'm inclined to support it. I think, could they do the day-to-day policing without the shield? Sure. But we never know when there's gonna be a situation where there's going to be, somebody with a weapon and somebody needs to protect themselves. And I know there's bulletproof vests, but I've always been amazed with bulletproof vests because it doesn't protect your face, it doesn't protect your arms. And I feel I'm inclined to support the shields.
I just have one question to Adam. Is it something that the police association deems these days a requirement, or, I mean, you mentioned Lennox, and I know Lennox is buying some, but not as many as we are, and you guys haven't mentioned any other community in the area. So I was just wondering, is it something that the police association feels is very critical these days, or where do we stand on all of it?
Well, I wouldn't ask the police labor union to take their association funds to purchase this now.
Okay, and do we know of any other communities in our region besides Lennox who are buying it this year?
No, only Lennox, because they had the funds available, so they've already purchased. I know the day we demoed them, there was 9 agencies there. As far as their future plans and their budget season, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
I was wondering if I may.
Hmm?
I was wondering if I may.
Yeah, and then, yeah,
You said one.
okay, go ahead. Okay.
I was wondering if these can be brought, in a lot, if you will. Sounds like maybe Lennox already purchased them, but why can't we go in and buy a
Together.
bunch
Yeah.
together? Opposed to each
Yeah, that's a
individual,
good point, yeah,
department buying it.
yeah.
And why don't we move this along?
Yeah, so why don't we try a vote on the committee and see where it goes? So,
Just before you vote one last time, if you're done with Shields, I got one more thing for you.
I hope you're not adding to your request, but okay. Go ahead.
Since we are foregoing one cruiser this year, you can also take a radio out. The radios themselves are paired for each cruiser. So that would also be some savings for you. So before you make your final motion, you can reduce radios from 1 to 2 and cut 16.75 in half.
And can I just ask, so do we still need, so the idea with the shields is 1 per vehicle, is that still that's 10?
That's
Or
correct.
is
That's
it-
how they'd be deployed is, in the vehicle compartment with the seats. That way you can roll out together.
So we're now looking, oh gosh, do I have to do the
You don't
math?
have to
or-
do that.
Okay,
This is the preliminary budget, the
Okay.
final budget's after the
so,
public hearing,
and
so.
do I, should
You know, it's
I,
minus, your motion is, the original budget minus one cruiser.
and one radio, minus one radio, minus one cruiser.
Yeah.
That's the motion on the table, so,
Second,
I'll do a vote, Madonna?
No.
No.
I vote aye,
I vote aye.
Hal?
And I'm a yes.
Okay, so it passes 3-2.
Okay, so next we have, DPW. Let's have Chris and Joe. I think they have some recommendations for us.
Sure, good evening, everybody. Joe and I took a look at the proposed FY 24 capital for DPW. So looking on the summary sheet on tab 7. And just working down each category. First category being vehicles and equipment. The thought is that all of this is important. The wood chipper, as you know, is very old. The F-550 is old, and by the time we take delivery of a new one, it will be even older and in worse shape. And the transfer station roll-offs are old and have holes in them. So those first 3 items, we'd like to keep on. The one reduction we can make in vehicles and equipment is maybe take a bagger off of one of the mowers and reduce a mower by a couple $1,000. Best we can do in that category. The rest we would like to leave vehicles and equipment as proposed. Pushing out the F-550 to next year puts it in a year with 2 more large vehicles and puts us a year behind. These take at least a year for delivery. So it's, by the time we take delivery, they're in that shape.
Can I say that?
Let
Joe,
them go through the whole presentation.
I'm sorry.
Let them go through-
Oh.
We're gonna vote on the whole thing?
No, we'll
Oh.
go back, but let them, so you see the magnitude of what they're doing.
Okay,
Right.
This is
okay.
tough to do in piecemeal.
If it, whichever you want.
Yeah, I think it's better if we go through everything, so we,
Okay.
I mean, if we go through right now, it's like you're cutting a bagger and that's it, and I think you have more cuts,
Yes,
so,
thanks.
yeah.
Can I just ask a procedure question?
Yeah, sure.
Which is, I think what's really important here is the budget, but also how the budget is funded. So that may also change, how we vote on items.
I'll try to note what we propose to be funded.
Right, exactly, so that we understand, what is the, on the borrowing.
So in
Versus
the vehicles
free
and
cash.
equipment, the wood chipper and the F-550 are borrowed. We propose that those would stay as requested. In terms of buildings and grounds, we did talk about that. The first line in your summary there is architectural and engineering services. We thought that could be reduced by 100,000. That's all borrowing. That would most likely impact year 2 of the building's asset management program. So this past year, we did 5 buildings. You saw that asset management report. We'd like to do more buildings next year. This reduction would defer that or eliminate that. It would probably also eliminate engineering for parks, which would eliminate or defer the Parks Commission's desire to redo the skate park in FY 26.
Are we
So-
still in the first line? We're 25?
Yeah.
Engineering,
Okay.
yeah.
But now he's talking about engineering and street parks.
So those are the types of things that if we went with $100,000 reduction in that architectural engineering line of buildings and grounds, those are the types of things that would likely be impacted.
And can you tell us, on the engineering line first,
Yeah, I don't think.
for the parks, do you have that listed out somewhere?
It's in more detail in tab 8 in the 5-year capital.
Okay,
plan.
but that's architectural, that's all in that one line of architectural engineering. Thank you.
Yes. Other things that could possibly be cut under buildings and grounds. We would keep courthouse, DPW buildings, which is really a generator for the highway garage. Fire station. Yes, that's difficult to look at that number, but that's small money now to fix a problem that will become very big money later. Libraries includes the steps and other things at Mason Library, partially through CPA. Police station we need to keep, that's the HVAC system. The police station, the senior center, we would eliminate, that's $75,000 in borrowing to upgrade the kitchen. This would eliminate or at least defer something that's on the select board strategic planning priority list. But that's a decision we can make. You can make. Town hall, we would remove 500,000 from that 700. That would severely reduce what we were hoping to accomplish at the town hall campus. We have some funds already approved from the previous year with which we would try to address the infrastructure, the intersection safety out here at Castle Street. And we would repave the lot. However, it would likely not include lighting, an electric vehicles parking station, additional parking. It would not include any of the public plaza improvements out front or any of the park improvements out back.
Would it include anything about the elevator? I thought
It
that-
would, we must keep the elevator.
Yeah, I
So
thought,
the remainder in that 700,000 would address the elevator, machine and upgrades and
Great, the bathroom, is there separate funding for
For
the?
separate funding, we would keep that. That was a previous year authorization. We would move forward with the elevator and the bathroom.
so that line would be reduced to 200,000.
Correct.
The town hall line?
Yes,
Yes.
So we're allowed to ask questions?
not when he's done.
Okay.
So, so those reductions in buildings and grounds are all, reductions to the borrow.
And the 150,000 you have there, the last line, which is the buffer,
It's a buffer.
you could,
We could reduce that if you want to reduce that.
yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
If you do reduce that, I'll just say you may want to consider, if you were previously considering reductions to the DPW buildings, repairs and maintenance operating line, you may want to reconsider those reductions because that line may need to go up if we can't address things by borrowing.
Right, yeah.
We have to do it without. But that's something we can talk about later. Moving on to streets. And this is all just borrowing here. We could reduce that engineering line by about 100,000. That would probably impact the drainage engineering that we were moving forward with on Taconic Avenue, Castle Street, and Castle Hill Avenue. Something that's been on our books for about 10 to 12 years, but we would just defer that.
So can I ask you a question here? So what will be included in the 600,000?
It would include drainage on Route 41, near George Street and Omega Road. That was the scene of some drainage issues this past summer. It would include engineering to put Park Street Route 183 into the Transportation Improvement Program. So that in a future year, maybe 27, 28, we can get state funds for reconstructing that road. If we don't keep that money in, then we wouldn't be able to achieve the many millions of state funds later. And other projects as needed, it's really difficult to estimate the engineering needs, so there's a bit of a buffer in that.
Okay. Do you have a sense how big that buffer is?
The buffer that Chris is referring to is other projects that are part of our annual paving program. like you see different streets down in here that we're planning to reconstruct and pave this year. The engineering was done the previous year. So by tying our hands with the engineering monies this year, you don't design it ahead of time.
I just want to understand, like, because Chris mentioned there is a buffer there.
It's a buffer, but it's accounted for, you know, with the next set of streets.
Okay,
Which is the next thing we're gonna talk about, right?
So FY 25 streets. There's 3.5 million borrowing proposed to do South Main Street, which would include from St. James Place to the Rotary roundabout. And then from the roundabout all the way south to National Grid. We estimate that project to be about 3.5 million. We will push it to FY 26.
Well, I have a question, but I'll let you go, Chris, if you.
And we would further reduce the street amount by $100,000, which we would have used for guardrail replacement or additions. I don't know if we have the specific streets for that, Joe, but I know there's some old ones
Because
that.
our real, no, I have a complete list of what needs to be done.
so Chris, could you give us the final number with after all those reductions?
3.7 million
3.7 million.
Total.
For the,
Or the borrowing.
for the,
For the streets, bridges and culverts.
and that is all borrowed.
no, I'm sorry, I meant the total number for DPW borrowing and tax levy.
Oh.
We haven't gone to sidewalks and paths.
We're not done yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can we let him
Okay, sorry.
finish?
Can I just,
Sorry.
I'm confused. So your revised number is what? And is that,
I just went through the reductions. I'm sorry, I didn't do the final total.
and it's just because the borrow column is different than the, because there's the chapter 90. Are we losing the chapter 90 grant?
Oh, no, no, we were keeping.
That's free money.
Right, so I don't understand. So which, the revised number, is that the total amount or the borrowing amount?
Borrowing.
Borrowing.
So,
I mean, it would reduce the total number by the same amount.
and what did you say? Did you, I'm sorry, Chris, yeah, I think.
I didn't do the tally. I just went individually. I'm sorry.
Okay. And I'm just talking about the bridge. I'm still just on bridges, streets, bridges and culverts.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The total reduction there is 3.7
What's
from the
the,
total and from the borrowing.
so minus 3.7 from 6,365 million. Minus three. Am
That's
I,
total streets, total streets, engineering, sidewalks, 3.7. That's the total street and bridge improvement.
Including engineering, streets and sidewalks and paths. You're talking
Oh.
about three.
You're taking out 3.5, that leaves you at 3.7, is that? Where we're at?
Taking out 3.7 from the bold street and bridge improvements category.
including sidewalks and paths?
Correct.
No engineering,
But, including engineering too.
including engineering.
So it used to be 7,195 and now it will be.
The two separate lines, it's just easier to keep them separate. 100 minus the engineering and 3.6 minus the street bridges and culverts.
It's 100 out of engineering, street bridges and culverts would be 3.6.
That's what I thought.
3.5 plus 100 out of.
Right.
So the
Right,
total.
but they're two
3.7,
separate lines and it's
yeah.
confusing people because we're saying 3.7, well,
Yeah, yeah.
100 and then 3.6. It's just
Yeah,
confusing.
that's, thanks
Yeah,
for the
no, I-
clarification, yeah.
There are things in there that would remain that we would only do if we got grant funding. One of those is the Brush Hill Culvert, Brush Hill Road. We don't get the grant, we won't do it, we won't borrow the funds. If we do get a grant, it's a culvert that needs replacing.
Is that the line where the Alden property has 700,000 in it also?
There is a line to support
Excuse me, Harper?
the Affordable Housing Trust Project on North Plain Road. In case bids come in very high and exceed the 3.2 million we have in grants. We have 750 programmed into the street road budget. We may or may not do that. Bids are due soon. So maybe by the time you go to public hearing, or certainly by the time you go to town meeting, we'll know if we need that or not. But for the time being, we're not proposing to eliminate it.
Harvey, you had a question about process?
I had a question about, and went back a little because I totally had to wait. I wanted to know with the senior center, you're saying you're not doing the kitchen and we will still have as a heating and cooling zone, if you will?
We would not be able to provide a commercial kitchen there, no. We would eliminate that idea. There would be the ability for people to go there. I mean, we have a generator functioning now, but it would be on a more limited basis. It would certainly be able to provide heating and cooling during the daytime.
Heating and cooling, but it couldn't be an emergency.
It wouldn't be a shelter, it wouldn't be a place where people could stay overnight or
Right.
could cook.
But could go there.
They could go there during the day, during regular hours.
Thank you.
And why couldn't you stay overnight? Because you don't have a kitchen? I don't know.
But I don't know, Joe.
There is a kitchen there, it's just kind of always fun.
Right, what I'm saying is people could stay, you are just saying,
Yeah.
you won't be able to provide
But I mean,
cooked meals, but you can
Right,
stay
for 20
anytime.
for
Yeah,
20 or 30 people, not hundreds.
no, I understand that, but
You
you
can
were saying that you could only stay there during the dance and you can stay there anytime, you just won't be able to prepare meals, you know, to everybody, for everybody,
It's
whatever.
definitely a more limited.
Yeah,
service.
yeah, no, that's clear, yeah.
Chris, a question on the large project for south of St. James, the if I get my math right, the 3.5 million project. Do you still have the view that you feel it's best for the town from a design efficiency and construction period point of view to fund it at the town level as opposed to asking for state money?
Yes, but if I could clarify, it's possible that we could get state funds that are not through the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program. So maybe in FY 26 or 27, we could get a MassWorks grant to support that. And that's, that doesn't require us to build it to federal highway standards. So we might get that, possible. But to, I think, answer your question, we would not propose to go through the TIP program because that would require a much more extensive design and much more extensive construction. That's something that we can't wait for, nor would we be able to even afford the design costs for.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Yes, thank you.
Maybe by deferring it, we have a little bit more time to seek other grants that are more flexible in their design and cost.
Just before we is that your suggestions? You're done? Okay, go ahead.
So if we did do a limited amount of work on South Main, would that disqualify us in any way from the MassWorks grant later on the following year? If we started it, would they say, oh, well, you can continue it?
I don't know the answer. I don't know how they look at it.
Eric?
Yeah, I guess, with the South Main, deferring it till next year, the year after. I appreciate that suggestion, and I think it's a good one on multiple levels. Obviously, that is a large number and, taken away from our debt service for at least, 1 year. And obviously can bring down, the overall increase that we're discussing tonight, but also on a different point. Just as an overall view of all the construction that's been happening on our main street all the way down, I honestly do think there's a little construction exhaustion, maybe I could say, by the town of just from the rotary and all the other improvements, which are great, well needed. I'm not trying to take anything away from them, but I think one season of no major construction going down that corridor through Main Street might be a pleasant break this coming summer.
Let me go on you. I'm gonna push that we remove the $700,000, but I'll wait. I won't do it tonight because let's see if what comes in or not for the grant, but after the public hearing, I think that's more than we can handle. If we're over budget, we'll have to look at that, see why we're over budget and either rebid it or cut something. I just don't think the town can afford to pay for that.
$700,000
On the Alton property.
Steve, I just want to
Let's
fill
call
this.
it the Habitat for Humanity.
Bill already has it. Yes, whatever they call it.
750.
Yeah, 750.
Well, I just wanted to.
No, I realize, I wasn't correct you. I realize that it's changed its name, but I can't remember it.
So going back to South Main, you know, my only request, or one of the big requests, if we're not gonna do the extensive work that we wanted to, was crosswalks and just safety. If we can, you know, ensure that there is gonna be a crosswalk, I don't know, I know we have to have sidewalk to sidewalk. But if there's any way, just to at least put put safety first, then put all the rest of it later on, but I think that's a huge need for, not housing in such a dense area. So I would just hope that we could carve out some safety measures with the crosswalk. That would be my big,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, that would be my big ask.
I guess if I could just toss out on South Main Street, you know, what you're asking the town to do is approve the money, obviously to take it out. But construction's not gonna happen till late this year at the beginning, and you're not gonna spend $3.5 million before the end of the fiscal year. So if you would approve it, the project, we've got on the way you're committed to doing it, but you would see debt service, complete debt service for that for a period of time, after the fiscal year. But, everyone says, well, push it down the road, push it down the road. You all look at what FY 26 looks like in the line,
Well, I think that's what.
and then.
Yeah, I was just gonna, I'm sorry to interrupt, Joe. Do you want to continue speaking? I don't want to interrupt you.
Joe's done, yeah, go ahead, and then if
Okay.
you wanna come up.
No, I guess
Yeah.
I do, at some point, I defer to your judgment on this, Steve, but at some point I would like to just discuss what I brought up in an email, to you and to town staff, and that basically just to try to get a sense as to, or an educated estimate or a range of outcomes from the town staff as to what they think the actual borrowings would be in fiscal 25, which would be comprised of what we're authorizing them today, but also, as Joe alluded to, would be also coming from all the previously authorized debt that's still on our docket.
Is there a way we have that number, Ellie or Chris or Mark?
We can discuss that.
Okay. Jimmy, just state your name and address.
Jim Bailey, Housatonic. First, I've got a comment on the Alden property, the North Plain Road project habitat. There are 7 members at least who sat through most of the hearings that we heard about this project. From the start, we were told, or they were informed, the town was informed. Infrastructure is going to be costly, extremely costly. There's no water, no sewer to the project. No problem, we were told. Mass Works is going to provide grants. Throughout the process, we were told grant money, not tax dollars, grant money from the state would pay for the infrastructure costs. An infrastructure grant came through at 3.2 million, am I correct? 3.2 million. We're asking for a quarter of that on top. We were told that the infrastructure was paid for by mass grants. The town went into this project knowing it was going to be an expensive project, knowing that there was no infrastructure in place. Time after time, we were told Mass Works would pay for it. We're asking taxpayers who already just endured an increase to absorb $750,000, $750,000. You can't get people to live in this town. Now, how are you gonna get people to stay in this town? $750,000 is a big nut. I'm sorry. The town was well aware of the costs going into this project before they even purchased the property. Sewer's only 900 feet away, we were told. It's only 13-foot difference in elevation. No problem, we'll put a pump station in. The rest of the residents in Housatonic don't have clean drinking water. No problem, we're gonna provide these new homes with filtration systems. What's that gonna do to the rest of the infrastructure, the water infrastructure? Me personally, I'd rather see that 750,000 go into water for the existing customers in Housatonic, the existing taxpayers. $750,000 is a lot of money. And I want to know, why is it buried in the DPW budget
That's where it belongs.
and not in the Affordable Housing Trust? Because it's their project, correct?
It's a town project.
It's now a town project.
It is, it always has been a town project.
But the Housing Trust, where did the 300 or $3.2 million, how did we get to a $3.2 million grant? Somebody came up with $3.2 million, said that's what's sufficient to do this project. Now we're asking for another quarter of it on top, just in case that 3.2 million isn't enough.
Let's move ahead and see where we go.
Thank you.
How's everyone want to handle the? I think we should do it by category: vehicles and equipment, buildings and grounds, street and bridge improvements.
I still have just a question
Sure, go ahead.
about, on the library line. Does that include the clamshell? Or, because I know, Joe, when you were in front of CPC and there was a proposal for the clamshell for $105,000, we didn't feel that we could fund it. And our discussion was that whether it was repaired today or whether it was repaired a few years from now, removal was all that was absolutely required for the clamshell. Am I still correct on that?
Yeah, I think we need to evaluate it to see if that's necessary, but it could always happen, you could remove it, repair it later.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's sort of being held together with chicken wire, so I'm not sure if it can stay there. I'm not sure. You're gonna evaluate it to see if it can just stay
And this budget includes $105,000
for the clamshell. Can that be deferred?
We did that with the sconces.
Right,
Because we felt the clamshell was more of an immediate need because of the hazard.
but the steps were more of an immediate need than the clamshell
It was
was.
just CPA money.
Right, but we were talking at CPA, your suggestion was that we could remove the clamshell and that would be, and it could be repaired at a later date. So I still don't see it as an absolute need in this budget. I'm just throwing it out there.
And go ahead and Bill.
Okay, I guess I just want to return to this question about how much borrowing can be projected to cost us every year. And I understand that this isn't an exact science, right? There are lots of unknowns, when exactly the borrowing's gonna happen, what the interest rate's gonna be, what interest rate we can get. But I'm looking at least by my read, we borrowed about 8 million this past year in 2020, fiscal year 24. Does that sound right?
Just general fund monies or the bond as a whole?
I'll take both.
The bond as a whole was 11 million.
11, so it was 11 million. Okay. And general borrowing was?
Tab 4. You'll see that. General fund borrowing was 9,179,50. CPA set 4,766. And then the wastewater portion is 1,397,350.
And that's on, and I just, where do I find just one of those numbers, which can we just have 4?
Tab 4.
Yeah, we have
In the
4.
grid. The last bond. The general.
Oh, I see, I'm sorry, I missed. Sorry.
The date is 11/16/23.
Yeah. So to me, it's sort of for every, and our debt service went up just under 900,000. So I'm sort of making this approximation in my mind that for every 10 million that we're borrowing, we're increasing our debt service by about $1 million. Does that sound like, I mean, again, I understand it's not
On an
exact.
annualized basis,
Yeah.
so at one point it's gonna hit you, and that would be the total
Am I
cost, yes.
totally off base on that?
No, you are right, Mom, yeah.
I mean, again, it could be,
Remember that the amortizations
I
are scattered.
know.
That's I think that's
It's a running rate, yeah.
that's a
That's a huge.
high estimate.
Why?
Just based on our own calculations, I think it's a little bit less. But if you want to be very conservative, fine, go with that. I mean, the issuance costs, the upfront costs are always higher. I mean, usually the running debt service usually reduces and some things are 10 years, other things are 30 years, so.
This is
It
the running,
differs,
it's
but-
an average of average, it's the running rate, and I think her estimate is pretty accurate.
It's not bad, I think it's high.
Yeah.
Okay,
For
so it's
conservative
a
purposes,
conservative, it's a, right.
You can use
So-
that.
And I think that's just something we should keep in mind. I mean, the issue also, and again, if that's the case, then, you know, we're looking at, if we keep borrowing at this rate, our budget will be going, the town budget will be going out by $1 million. And that doesn't include salaries, that doesn't include anything else. And I feel like this is what we need to be aware of as we start looking at moving forward.
Phil, did you have something you want to add?
Right, so you know, certainly I'm saying, I agree with everything that Ann said. I guess the message I'm trying to convey is that, I spread out some numbers, trying to get a better sense as to how our capital spending translates into our debt service line item in the budget. The debt service line item in the budget, as we all see, it went up by about a third this last year. It's now about 20% of the general fund budget. So it's a very, no surprise, it's a very, very meaningful number. Our debt level went up, you know, based upon looking at the numbers in the binder, it went up by, as Ann said, about $8.5 million. You know, we are, you know, the debt is a significant issue. And I think it's my sense, based on the crude math that I've tried to do, is that it's going to be a very significant increase next year. I think the cuts that we're discussing tonight are going to dampen that a bit, but it's still going to be an increase next year based upon the borrowings we're looking to approve tonight and perhaps some of the previously authorized borrowings, and also the reality that interest rates have gone up pretty considerably for any new debt. So I'm trying to make a point that's separate from any sort of yes or no on all the line items. I'm trying to in my mind, just factor in the cost of these borrowings and how it runs through our debt service line item in the following year. And so it's becoming sort of those sort of non-discretionary, it's becoming one of those non-discretionary increases in our operating budget, similar to you know, the various line items that we talked about the other night that are really beyond our control. So again, that being said, you know, I put out some numbers. They went to Steve, they went to Lee, they went to Ann. I didn't send them out broadly because I was concerned about open meeting law considerations there. I would encourage town staff, you know, to distribute that when they think it's appropriate. But come back to the capital request page, I think that the reductions that Chris has walked through are much appreciated. I think they make a lot of sense, and they make the number much more manageable in the context of our prior year capital budgets.
Thank you, Phil. Aaron?
Yeah, I guess, just speaking broadly on everything that Chris and Joe have just laid out, and I think what we can do is we can call them cuts this year, but it's at the end of the day, it's just kicking the can down the street, and I acknowledge that. And I acknowledge that everything that we're moving is gonna have to be dealt with in the next few years. And I don't see it getting easier, but as we all know, and I know, you know, the increase that we're talking about here, somehow, we do just need to try to control it this year. And then go through this same excruciating pain next year, unfortunately. But I'm not sitting here pretending like that we're cutting something off this line here and all of a sudden it's gonna disappear forever. Unfortunately, I know that all these things need to be addressed, and that's why I guess at the start of this whole budget thing, what's been important to me is the maintenance on the buildings, and I don't want to take away from that. And I do appreciate Joe you doing the engineering on those buildings, and I would like to see us do the additional ones. I see that maybe we're hampering it a little bit by taking some out of the engineer services. Which, you know, I wouldn't, we made a lot of cuts. I wouldn't mind seeing that number brought back, so we at least know what we're looking again, and we can try to at least get a hold and maintain of our town-owned buildings. But the rest of these cuts, although they're not easy, this deferral for other years, I do appreciate you coming up with them, and I feel that that is a pretty significant number, that we did there, and that you all did there, and I appreciate that.
To your point,
Go ahead.
to your point, Eric, about the building, we all smell that smell here today.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
sewage.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
one of
yeah,
the top
yeah.
priority things that were identified on the list, so
Yeah.
just to show you, these are real things, we didn't do it on purpose either.
Rich, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm completely, I know this is painful and difficult to go through line by line, but when we're looking at the 5-year plan that you laid out here for us, it seems very aggressive as far as funding is concerned, and I'm wondering why all of these things need to happen within 5 years. Is there not fungibility in that when we're looking at the impossibility of being able to actually afford borrowing at that level every year?
Is your question?
My question is, the 5-year plan, can it be extended for a longer period, or all of these things that are being deferred to next year? Not everything for 2 years has to be done next year. I'm talking about, instead of looking at it as a 5-year
I
plan,
understand that.
can you expand the plan and keep in mind the idea that it has to be a balancing act between what we can afford to do and what must be done. And the must has to move sort of to an area that's maybe not as good.
And your subject is towards buildings?
Well, towards buildings,
Let me just.
I think so.
Let me just start with buildings.
Yeah.
The 5 of the 13 buildings you reevaluated,
mhm,
there's $2.6 million worth of work in the next 10 years. Some of that's discretionary, there's some discretionary, it's like put a sprinkler system in the courthouse, that's gonna take $175,000 out of that. But the immediate needs of those reports on those 5 buildings, $149,000. Those are like code violations, safety violations, things that would be liabilities for the town. We originally had $849,000 in FY25 budget. Very difficult to get it all done in 1 year. We made the decision to split it over 2 years. So in those 5, in the plan for those 5 buildings, there's an immediate needs, a 2 to 5 year and a 6 to 10 year. If you want to take that and stretch it out further, you can. You also have 7 more buildings, or 7 or 8 more buildings to build.
I'm not saying I wouldn't like to see everything done. You understand that I'm saying that simultaneously with trying to face the fact that we can't afford it.
Yeah, so, they don't go away, as we know, they don't go away, they don't fix them this.
I know.
And even on the roads, it's like mathematically, I've explained to the boards how we do approximately up to 2 miles of road a year.
Right.
What we should be doing is closer to 4
Mhm.
to take care of the lifespan of our roads. Our bridges are in relatively good shape. There are some work there, but it could be a lot worse. But these infrastructure pieces don't go away. Do we have to turn around and decide, hey, it's time not to have this building anymore? I mean, you know, I'm not trying to say we need to cut buildings out, but it's like, if we can't maintain them, why have them?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It's not real simple, it's fairly simple to say, no, we're not gonna do this year, but it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And we need to figure out how we're gonna do these things. Some of this is a result of not having done things for years.
Yeah.
And if we decide not to do them this year, that result's gonna be amplified, and we're gonna continue to kick it down the road. So I'm not suggesting we should spend frivolously on anything, but just don't realize, and someone's already said it, it's not going away, and it's gonna amplify, it's gonna get worse. if we didn't do, no one's suggesting this, we didn't do the leak in the firehouse roof. But we don't do this year, but we may do mold next year.
Right, right.
Yeah, well, and then,
Yeah, I have a question. I mean, I have to say, this is my second year going through this process, right? And then every time I learn something new. However, my take on all this is there is nothing frivolous in those budgets, in those requests. I think what you are doing is amazing, the work is great. What you guys are doing is amazing. The work is great. This town is really managed and run very well. I don't really feel it's the issue of the expenses, it's the issue of the revenue. Okay, and that's really, and I don't know if you guys have thought of it or started thinking through it, but that's really what it comes down to, The expenses will only get higher, they are not gonna get lower, we are gonna defer, we are gonna delay, we are gonna cut a little bit, it will have to get done. But how are we gonna pay for it? Okay, there is I don't think this town has endless, stream of revenues. We have a lot of tax exempt entities here. There's a lot of other things going on here. So what is it we are gonna do? I don't know. But that's really what at least, keeps me awake at night because I don't really see where the money's gonna come from. So is there a plan? Are we gonna think about some development strategy? Are we gonna maybe get more aggressive with the state? I don't know, but like, what are we thinking about here?
I mean, I can comment on that, but I can also, I guess also want to say, I guess I'm still struggling with why. And perhaps I was involved in this decision. I mean, why would we forego state funds to repair a road or fix a road? I mean, I know we probably feel like we do a better job, but it just seems to me to do South Main Street ourselves when there are state funds available because it's a state road. I just don't, I guess to me, and again, I may have voted for.
I'll just reiterate briefly. At the time, several years ago, those state funds were not immediately available in the time that we thought we were gonna have to redo the road.
Okay.
And support the tremendous amount of housing and development that's happening down there. So the TIP program did not look favorable at all, so we decided to move ahead.
So.
That's as I explained before.
Okay,
And maybe to add to what Chris said, just before this meeting, I got off a call with Berkshire Regional Planning and Mass DOT, and they're talking about the TIPS program and funding.
okay,
Now, we have, we're looking at trying to get Route 183, Park Street, from 7A to the Park Street Bridge on that.
right.
Okay. The road is getting in tough shape, if
Mhm.
anyone has driven that.
Mhm.
And the next funding availability is probably 2029 or 2030. That's how far away it is. So up to that point, we have to do all our engineering, which the level of engineering.
I understand, yeah,
is-
I know. I mean, to get a big,
It's still a great deal.
right,
It's still a great deal because for $900,000 worth of engineering, we're gonna get a $7 million project done for us.
See, that's-
So clearly,
I just-
but also along those lines, as I'm learning the ropes and Chris is tapping on every time we can see a grant availability, there's also another municipal paving program that we've been pleaded to stay close out to 41. Because when we look at Route 41, could Route 41 be a TIPS project? Sure, but it's not gonna last 6 more years. That road is falling apart now. And to pave that road from one end to the other and fix it right, you're talking $7 million.
and then, so we're gonna have to pay that?
Well, no, and that's been,
But we can't wait for the tip.
we can't wait for the TIPS, but the state also has other paving
I mean,
programs.
we could
so
wait
You
for
have
the
to
tip,
qualify.
but it's not a good idea.
So if you see that's listed in next year's budget and has been in the 5-year plan for 5+ years. And it just keeps getting kicked down the road, kicked down the road. There's no time to wait for that one, but state DOT has a municipal paving program, like they did over by the airport for us. And like they're doing out by Eagleton School, I think it is on 23 next year. They're gonna do our piece of the road there. Trying to get 41 on that list.
So I have a question about that, because it's my understanding, talking to people in other places, the state grants are coming down a bit. And there's a lot of federal money thrown in and people thought it was, pandemic and all that, but things are kind of getting maybe more normalized. Is that what you guys are experiencing? Do you feel we are
Not yet,
still a way to go to tap some of the state money, or I have no feel for that, I'm just asking, you, how do you feel about that?
Currently, the state programs are still pretty well funded, but I think you're right, it would be folly to count on that forever.
Right, and do you feel like we have the capability here to tap all the grants that are available there, or do you guys need help, or can we get more aggressive with that?
Tap as many as we can, that's what makes the engineering programs so critical in both buildings and streets. To have designs ready, to understand what we're applying for, what the cost might be. That's a big part of what we use the engineering funds for, is to get ready
Right.
to apply for grants.
But do you
Hoping
feel,
that there are-
if you had more resources, would you be able to get maybe more state money? Or do you feel what we are getting is just about what we can get?
I don't know what you mean by more resources.
I think he means more resources to help with
To help with
looking for grants.
looking for
applying for-
grant making,
I mean, one of the
grant
things,
writing, whatever,
as
yeah.
I listen.
We're well aware of where the grant sources
Yeah.
are. So it's not a matter of finding the sources, it's a matter of, are we competitive and eligible and.
Right.
So, if I can dovetail, what I'm saying, I mean, I know that in this revised budget, we're cutting the engineering. Is that sort of cutting off our nose to spite our face? I mean, maybe we shouldn't cut the engineering, and I mean, I can't believe I'm saying it for this year. To position ourselves better to get some funding for South Main Street, which will, and 41, which will save us millions and millions.
You have a point there, because it's like, we did a high level study on 41, it needs to be done there with drainage, and this is an example. The drainage repair is about $700,000 and probably $50,000 worth of engineers. If Mass Highway comes through to us and turns around and says, hey, we got money in the municipal paving program to do 41 for you, we're gonna have to scramble to find that money to do that drainage work before they do theirs. And cutting the engineering out, we don't even be ready to accept that.
Phil, go ahead.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I was gonna make 2 points. One is, Ann already made the point very well, that the engineering investments on this page, they're speaking just from my, as a non-engineer, they're easy to critique. It's hard to, see the upside of those investments, but they really work their way through the grant system, and they're incredibly important to plant the seeds for meaningful grants. Unfortunately, it's deferred gratification, but I think it's a very good investment, and I would support that. And also, just coming back to Melena's point about revenue and growth, it's way outside the scope of tonight's session, and certainly outside the scope of the finance committee. But to me, that is our path to a solution to this challenge is more growth in property tax revenue, which means more development, more housing of every type. We need more people paying taxes in our town to pay for the expense of maintaining all our fixed infrastructure costs. So, but again, that's, I'm getting outside of my lane there as chair of the finance committee, but I think that's just an important point to make, and I agree with Melena touched on.
Thanks, Phil. Garfield, and then Mike.
Joe, before you had mentioned about trying to save some of the roads, maybe doing a little repair work on to try to stretch it a little bit. I drove 41, every day for 5 weeks. And I did not see where I thought we should spend a lot of money on that right now.
Route 41?
41.
So Route 41 is very hard to maintain because of the wheel ruts that are in it from all the years of use. It's a deteriorating, it's been crack sealed quite a few times, and basically the road is falling.
Well, I guess maybe I didn't notice that then, but I had to drive from North Plain Road up to Pittsfield every day for 28 days, and I just didn't see where I want to spend a lot of money on it. Right?
To your point on maintenance, last year you did approve repair money to crack seal, and we did like 11 miles of road this past year, so that helps prolong the roads, and it's kind of why when Chris and I were talking, let's leave the crack sealing in there, and let's take the guardrail out, because if the guardrail gets deep by with a little bit, we can protect our roads a little bit better by crack sealing. And it went for 5 or 6 years, it looks like that you didn't do crack sealing according to the records. But we're back, we have one more real good year, then we can back that down to maybe $50,000 and just maintain and hit high points. As we do these roads, we're spending our good money redoing these roads as soon as they open up a crack, even if they're 2 years old, seal them, so they last longer. So I think it's money well spent in maintenance. Route 41 is probably the highest road we patch per lane mile. Last year, I think we did close to 180 tons of just patching. So that's the cost of patching, and it's also labor intensive to patch those roads. And right now, in some of our roads, 41, 183, in between every snowstorm, we're out there patching with cold patch, which is throwing good money away.
I just didn't see it, but I'll take your word for it.
Lee, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Joe, I think you're doing an excellent job on, arguing why this is all needed. And, for the citizens, they're still looking at what's their tax bill gonna be next year. And, I keep kind of pulling back out and like, what percentage are we okay as a town to present to our citizens and say, okay, you're gonna be looking at $600 more a year because of this. So, and I know that we asked the town manager to come back and bring some cuts in with the operating budget. And I'm wondering, this might be a time just to inform that, because, rather than nickel and diming things that seem to be very, very important. And I'm not saying that we're gonna shift everything, but I'm just trying to say, okay, well, this all sounds needed. And then I also know that Mark's gonna present his cuts, the 12.9%. And what I'm hoping is that'll bring us down to a manageable thing that we can, we can start breathing. Maybe, okay, and then
No,
we
I
can look
think
at you
we're-
and say, okay, well, you're making a good argument.
So, yeah, so we need to work on the capital, because capital is gonna affect years.
To come.
We're not gonna, the capital is not gonna cut next year's budget substantially or at all.
Right.
But let's see if we can go through these.
Can
Yeah, go
we
ahead.
just review, because I just was confused a little bit, so can we say what's the total, or, we've got the wood chipper
So
staying,
humor me, let's start with vehicles and equipment,
okay,
and their only recommendation here, and I say only, I don't mean that derogatory.
Yeah.
Is that they could cut a bag off of one of the mowers, which probably isn't worth doing for $1,000. So they're saying under vehicles and equipment, I say they, Joe and Chris and staff, that should maintain where it is right now. More or less, so that's what they're saying on that line, those lines.
so it's gonna be
259, 684, 197,000 is borrowing, 62,684 is other, which is the tax line.
I would make a motion to approve or recommend the DPW budget, vehicles and equipment budget as outlined.
Capital requests.
I'm sorry,
The capital requests.
capital, I keep saying budget, I'm so sorry, capital request as outlined.
Second.
Minus the bagger,
No, I think we decided,
because it's not working. Okay.
If we can cut it out still, we'll cut it out.
Yeah.
Is there any way you could just go with one
No, it doesn't.
0 turn mower?
We can do whatever you want. We're gonna spend every dollar you give us to the best of our.
I guess the
ability.
question is, what would be the consequences if there was only one mower?
Those are 2 of 7 that we have. Okay, and the 7 that we have during the summer, as we all know, mowing our lawn twice a week. Sometimes they're mowing every day in periods of time.
Yeah.
Can you cut one? Sure, if you wanted to. If that's what it is, it'll probably be in next year's budget.
I think we get a lot of complaints of just with with the rain and everything, that sometimes places aren't mowed as much as they should be, so I'd hate to take that away from the town personally.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
I think that's
we
not a
mow
big, yeah,
every week or 5 days or something.
yeah, last summer was really big, yeah.
Any further, has there been a second?
Want to take it, give the police department back their
Yes,
shield?
Melina.
They got their shield.
They got their shield.
We
They got
did,
Three to two, you're okay.
The shields.
I think we have a second.
Yes, you
Um,
did.
Any further discussion? We'll do a vote. Madonna,
Aye.
Melina,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well.
So, Selectboard.
Second, I second the motion, the motion from finance committee.
So we have the same motion,
Second that.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. So both votes were unanimous. So the next one, and I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, the next one is, the buildings and grounds. And in that recommendation is to remove $100,000 from architectural and engineering services. From the senior center to remove $75,000. For the town hall project, remove $500,000. And that was it on that one, that's correct.
There was something from
The
library.
buffer.
Yeah, discuss the last one.
The buffer, which,
I wouldn't touch the buffer if I could say so, because I think that that is the thing that saves us when we're cutting.
Can I ask about the library?
Yeah, I thought there was
Yeah, that
something,
seems
I had
quite
some
high.
notes.
I had already brought up the clamshell cost of 105,000.
The library's number in terms of borrowing includes 105 for the clamshell entrance at Mason. 28,000 of immediate building needs at Mason as per our report.
Yes,
65,000 at Ramsdale. That was the zoning, the heating system,
Right, that would be only the heating
Alright.
system.
and 70,000 at Ramsdale for building immediate needs as per the report.
So
So the library's total is,
I have,
which one is it?
yeah,
Yeah,
may I ask? Since we have, suggested that the town vote $150,000 towards the Ramsdale requesting for a larger grant from the state to fix the library, which would involve an entirely new process of what they want and how that should be done. Is it prudent for us to spend any more money on Ramsdale while we're waiting to find out if that grant is going to come or
what
not?
about the immediate needs?
They have to do
that-
certain things there.
Shall we spend it? I mean, it's a valid point.
These
Yeah,
are,
no, and Chris and I talked about this at great
We
length
talked, we
today.
had that exact conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, I really don't see how we could spend any money on the building now. I understand that it needs that, but I'm pretty sure that the state's gonna come back and want a different thing.
Well, the thing is, if they did look at the heating system and decide to change the heating system, that $70,000 or that building management system, it could be thrown right out the window.
And that's what my concern
Right,
is.
that's what we
It's a lot of money and we don't need to spend it. I mean, if we wait, I know I'm saying wait another year,
Right.
but for this particular one, we really do
Yeah.
know whether we're gonna get funding from another source.
So how much is in there for Ramsdale?
135.
So it would be four
That's- if it's a
twenty-eight
reality,
minus
you might
135.
Put that on hold.
Well, even if it's not a reality, when we decide, the town decides or the state decides, then we can put it back into another
Right.
project.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that would
Yes.
revise it from 428 to 293. Am I right?
I believe that's.
So we're saying take 193 off libraries?
135 off.
So my plan with the heating system, zones,
there was
efficiency,
there was 20,000 though,
no, that was 65,000.
or 65.
Right, the 130. The intentions were to get a grant for that, an energy efficiency grant. And again, even if we get grant money, it's still not worth spending the money. If you're just gonna rip it out the next year.
That's my concern.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent point.
That's not necessarily that we're advocating the project, but we're waiting to see how the
We're
town
waiting
votes,
to
how we
see.
vote,
Yeah.
and how the state.
And then
votes.
how the state.
Indeed,
Yeah.
I mean, we may be back here next year wanting that to happen, absolutely, because the building needs it. But if we're gonna be going through a huge state project, then it'll be addressed in that project. And can I also ask about the 105,000 for the clamshell? I mean, I know it's unsightly, but we're looking at if I heard from you before that it could be removed and eventually we could put that in the budget and put that back in the library without hurting the building. That was my
You could
understanding.
remove it, Find a safe place to store it, rental unit, put it inside it or something.
Okay,
And then you're gonna look at that.
I know.
Over time.
I know, but it might remind us that we're looking at absolute needs that the town needs first. And then those things that we really want for beautification of the town, then we can consider.
And then Joe may go back to the CPA and say, really, you cut this with the budget the way it is, and let's try it again.
Well, for next year, yeah.
Can I, with the clamshell, like if this did go through, would this be a project that would happen pretty quickly?
I
After
bet you the restoration is close to a year.
a year? So I guess just wondering, like with the statue unfolding, the stairs and everything, as far as that all unfolding at the same time is probably not possible. Or,
I think most of the cost of that work is once you get it down, get into a restoration.
Yeah.
cause I think it would be nice with all the stuff that's in motion for the library, just to have that building presented in all its glory, clamshell, the new stairs, the new benches and the statue. You know, and I get it, it's, again, a tough budget, but
And if we put money in the engineering to get this, ready to go.
Yeah.
I mean, it maybe make us more viable for other grants too that come across.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to quote Madonna, my friend, wants and needs are two different things. It would be nice to have,
Yeah.
but this isn't the year to do it.
I mean, I absolutely love the clamshell and I love the look of the building, but I really think that would be a good reminder to all of us that what we're attempting to do is think absolute needs first.
And I'm serious about CPA, going back to CPA.
And I'm seriously
Still there.
thinking it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, next
That's a
year,
tough group to go.
next year.
That's why I'm saying you.
You're very nice this year, come on.
So let's see if we can get a motion on here, and here's what I see from what I'm hearing. So, and what I heard earlier, so under buildings and grounds, I think I heard almost, I won't say unanimous, but majority did not want to cut the architectural and engineering by 100,000, because that's probably gonna hurt us in the end. But to cut the 75,000 from the senior center, 500,000 from the town hall. And then 135 from Ramsdale and 105 from Mason.
Was that 100?
and,
No,
100
the
and,
clamshell
105.
was 100.
May I ask a question regarding?
I didn't make a motion, so you can more than ask a question, you can do whatever you like.
Thank you. On the courthouse, I absolutely know that everything we put into that money, this is a building that where we have a grant with, we have an agreement with the state for use. But if I'm asking, what are the most urgent needs for year number one, does it have to be all 241,000?
Pretty much, because I think the way the agreement is gonna come through is there's requirements for year 1 and 2 of that lease. Which, is like $90-something thousand for me. I have it all itemized, but
So is the 200,000 that the state is requesting a part of this 241,000?
This is getting at the.
what's that?
Because we keep asking.
Well, we've had this
the
discussion
question.
already.
But we haven't had a definitive answer.
Yeah, we did.
No, we
You
didn't.
weren't here.
I listened to the
We
entire
did get a
thing
definitive
and it's,
answer.
well, I don't know the answer.
Let's revisit.
Okay, I'd like to revisit.
My understanding is there was overlap.
Yeah, I don't think we resolved it either.
No, there's no overlap.
No, there's,
They were two different,
we broke it up, 2 ways.
because of the funding, right?
fund.
Yes, yeah, now, yeah.
So, the special article includes work on the main entrance, exterior painting, pavement patchwork, parking lot repair, HVAC system service contract, which will be a yearly item for the 10 years of the contract, and rebalance the HVAC system. Do some interior straightening and painting in preparation for painting the inside the following year. The $76,000, half of the immediate needs of that building.
Yeah.
And that comes up to $221,000 in the special article requested for 200. So that's one category. The portion that's in the capital budget is the front walkway. New entryway doors, 3 locations, and there's 6 up the doors. Handrails from the main level to the basement. Start on cooling cassette replacements. And a building management system for the HVAC. And that's $241,000, $240,300, so 241. So there are 2 different categories, and
They
the
don't
borrowing,
overlap.
I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but anything we put in the capital was a borrowing item, anything we put in the specials, maybe.
Is free cash.
Right. What do we want to capitalize?
Yeah.
Painting and stuff like that.
Exactly, my point, yeah.
So can we take a vote?
So just for discussion's sake, does someone from either group want to make a motion?
Okay,
Yeah, of course,
one more question.
of course.
So can you just give a quick rundown, the 135 that we're coming from Ramsdale, what that would be going toward?
The 135?
Yeah.
Sure. The 135 is the heating zones and building management system, which basically will split the steam zone up. And then the 70,000 is half of the immediate needs. The detail of those immediate needs, I don't have off the top of my head. So again, I can comfortably say if you're gonna redo that building, you're gonna throw it.
But if they don't get the grant money,
We'll be back next year or the year after.
it's just the year after, and
Yeah.
it's just, it's deferred, and just, I guess in your estimation, as far as in this question of like, if you don't fix the leak now, you're fixing
We're not
more.
gonna neglect the building, we'll still maintain it to the best of
Yeah.
our abilities.
So I'm just curious, like, as far as these upgrades,
Right.
how immediate?
And if there's some of the immediate needs that we can, peel off in our time on the operating budget, we will.
And Joe, the single zone heating, what is the difference in the cost of heating?
Savings.
Yeah, I mean, is it few hundreds a month, few
could-
thousands?
It could be probably 20% of their heating costs.
Okay,
And because with that, there'll be not only zoning it, but it'll be a building management system.
right,
That's
sure.
control of the people aren't there.
Yeah,
um,
okay.
Which I believe in the last meeting I shared, the utility cost of that building is around $40,000 a year.
Right, yeah, we just don't know, yeah.
Lee, did you have a question?
No, I just want to make sure that, if we didn't address 50% of immediate needs, that we're not, risking the building being closed
No,
next year.
we'll review the list. I mean, if there's things we could, which we do anyways. The sewer thing that you're smelling here is being fixed. $15,000 thing off our immediate request.
Okay.
Chris, can I ask us the clarification that you proposed reducing the engineering services under building and grounds from 425 to 325? And did I remember right that you were saying that reduction would be to defer or delay improvements to the skate park?
Well, part of the total, we were estimating about 50,000 for engineering to prepare for an FY 26 skate park project. So, we don't itemize all the engineering, but as we put, we don't come up with 425 just out of thin air. We add it up and it's a bit fungible for us, but we estimate about 50,000 would be was the skate park project, and I think we had about 65 for the year two of the building asset management study. So a few more buildings. So
Eric,
those
Oh,
two
sorry.
things would most likely be affected by the reduction.
Oh, that's,
was that your question? Yeah, and to me,
Yeah,
Affecting
and we don't pick and choose, but that's how
that's the most one.
most likely.
Okay, thank you.
You know, if we don't go forward with the town hall project, then maybe that comes down a little bit. We don't go forward with the senior center kitchen, you know, the things get pushed around within architectural and engineering as needed.
so I guess can I just ask one quick question on the town hall project, cutting out the 500,000, but the 200,000 would be in place of just eliminating that entrance that has been marked as,
200,000 is for the elevator.
oh, just the elevator. So then the whole campus remodel is done.
You know, there's an authorization from 2 years ago that we
Okay.
have in place.
Yeah.
Which we could use a little bit of.
Yeah.
Unless finance says we don't want any more debt service, in which case we'll stop the project altogether.
Okay, so
That's-
this 200,000 is just straight elevator, that's the number there. Okay, I was thinking that we said it was gonna be eliminating that and possibly paving. But that's things that were approved in a prior time as well.
At a prior time.
Okay.
And we can continue those. Or not, as you direct us.
Understood now. I'm ready for a motion.
Okay,
So
make a
can I'll make a motion, I guess, again, I just wanna feel like I understand the numbers. So if I go down the line, the motion would be to have 325,000 for architecture and engineering, all borrowed, 241,000 for the courthouse, all borrowed, 25,000 for DPW building, none borrowed, that comes out of the tax levy. 150,000 for the fire station, all borrowed. I'm doing some math here, that it's 188,000 for the libraries, of which 93,000 are borrowed. Does that sound right, Chris?
Yes.
Okay. 75,000 for the police station, all borrowed, 0 for the senior center, 200,000 for the town hall, all borrowed, and 150,000 for emergency contingencies, improvements, all borrowed. So a total capital budget for building and grounds of 1,354,000, of which 1,234,000 are borrowed. What do you think?
So my only question would be, and I thought, yeah, you may be correct on this. I thought we had decided, or majority had decided to leave the architectural engineering at 425.
I think we would have to vote on that, so I don't think everyone.
We did. I thought it was-
I'm just asking, I understand we have to vote.
I think I might have been one of the people who sort of nodded my head. I
Okay,
think
I just want to make sure you had the
I
motion
was
correct.
really thinking of the street and bridges engineering.
Okay, no, we were talking about that one.
I know, so
Okay,
I think I
Yeah, as long
would
as
keep
that's the
my,
motion
I
you
would keep
wanted.
my motion as it is.
okay.
What was it for the architecture?
325, moving
325,
100,000.
right, removing 100,000, that's what I thought.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Well, I agree with your motion, and I would probably advocate for putting most, if not all, of the money back under engineering services for sort of the more general purposes that Chris has outlined. But other than that change, I would support your motion. So we could vote on yours and come back to it, or we could revise it.
Why don't we see how the vote goes and then we'll see. All right,
Okay.
so, Madonna?
What are we?
We're voting on the motion with the numbers I gave earlier.
The numbers you gave it, okay, I'm an I.
Aye.
Aye.
Bill?
Voting no on this motion.
Okay, and I vote aye as well.
Okay, do I have a select board?
Yeah, I'd like to repeat the motion that the finance committee.
Do I have a second? Do I have another motion?
I'd like to make a motion, for fully funding the architect and engineer services line at 425. And then all the other numbers as recommended by Chris and Joe down the line.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I believe that Chris, when he went through this, mentioned taking off $100,000
He did.
of that line, so that's why I'm just
Right. but-
curious why.
Yeah,
we're putting that.
I wanna put that money back on because I feel that, doing the asset management on our buildings is very important. And some of that's going to that also. And then also, I'm a supporter of the, skate park, and I believe they're discussing that some of that is in there for that as well. So those two items, are pretty important to me. And I just think that we need to have a full view of what's going on with all our buildings. And so I don't want to postpone year two by any means. And I just see so many cuts already down this line that, I think we need to stay on top of our engineering services and in our game plan of this big puzzle we're trying to put together.
Right, the risk that we don't fully fund asset management, we end up paying more down the line because we're not doing work now to be prepared for what we need to do in the future.
And I also get concerned that grants, we're gonna start shifting grants, so grants will be harder to come by because we don't have the engineering and architectural lines. It is, I think it's not a good idea.
Well, I just had a question. So Chris, when you originally said that you're okay with taking off 100,000, are we? I'm just wondering about the logic of fully funding that line after you first time said 100,000 would be your recommendation. Am I missing something?
I'm not sure we were comfortable saying it was okay to do it.
Okay,
If you're
it was like,
for it,
if you
could
had
do
it to cut it, okay.
I was just saying, I was thinking I wouldn't mind keeping that $100,000 cut, and if Chris is comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it. And may I ask something about, something else? I have down here, and my fault, I don't know why, but this is a fire station, I have 50%, were we cutting something?
No, that's 50% of the immediate needs.
Okay.
That's what that is. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
No. We're talking about
It was
Gary.
No, it's your motion didn't get a second. So the motion that we're working on is the same as the finance committee, except for $100,000 funding to 425 under architectural and engineering services. So that's a motion that was seconded. So all in favor?
No.
And opposed?
Aye.
So it passes 3-2.
Can I just ask Steve, so how does this get presented if this were the way we go in the warrant, so what the finance committee voted on would be presented and it would say the select board said no?
At this point, it would say select board
Did not.
not
recommend.
recommending, but we'll have to figure all that out.
Okay,
We're
just curious about
Yeah.
how all these votes work, okay.
yeah. that's-
I'm sorry, Steve, can you review what library amount the select board just approved, just to make sure we have that right?
Same as in your motion. Actually, Phil, I think you could have joined us because I think you agreed with ours. We had the $100,000 in there and everything else was the same as the finance committee. So
Okay.
minus
But-
135,000 for Amsdale, minus 105 for Mason.
Okay, all right.
Street and bridge improvements. So we removed the recommendation was to remove 3.5 million from the streets, bridges and culverts. Was there something else on that, Chris?
So,
I read my
so
writing.
how much did we remove? Can you just, I'm sorry.
3.5 million.
There was
And it was
100,000 for the guardrails that we were talking about.
And that's under street bridges and culverts, so,
There was 100,000 off of that.
On the engineering.
okay, minus 100 in engineering and 3.6 million from street bridges and culverts.
Right. Minus 3.6.
So that was the recommendation.
So Ann,
So-
I'm gonna steal your thunder for a minute. I'll make a motion. And I'll make a motion that we reduce streets, bridges and culverts by 3.6 million. And that's the only change to the capital request.
Wants to keep the engineering at 7.
Yeah, yeah.
You're intentionally not removing 100,000 from engineering, right, Bill?
Correct, yeah.
So let me just be clear here. So engineering is gonna be 700,000, street bridges and culverts will be 2,765,000. And sidewalks will be 30,000 borrow 30, no, it'll stay the
Yeah.
same,
Right.
Stay the same.
but only 30,000 borrowed, correct?
Yes.
Does that sound right? And am I right, Chris, on the amount then of street is 2765? I did 6,365,000 minus 3,600,000.
Sorry, my grouping's just a little bit different, so.
Oh, okay. I guess I just want to speak to the, engineering. This was, I will say this is where I agree with Bill. This is where I think we do want to put the money into engineering, because this is where the big grants and the big funding are. And this is where, again, if we can cut some of our road repair work, we're saving millions and millions of dollars. I really think we should fund the engineering at 100% of the request. But we don't have a motion yet.
Yeah.
Well, I think you seconded my motion, I believe.
Oh, I did,
Yeah,
and then I
we'll make a
second your motion,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Does everybody understand?
So
that?
there's
the
a motion
is-
on the table, and does anyone, any further discussion?
I just want to make sure everybody understands the motion,
I think we do.
okay.
And I'm sorry, Ann, now I'll turn it back to you. I'm sorry, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, that's all right, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Should I do a vote? Bill, do you want to go first?
No, yes, aye.
Yeah, I vote aye as well, Richard,
Aye.
Madonna,
No.
Elena,
No.
all right,
So passes
3-2.
Okay.
I would like to repeat the finance committee, motion, but reduce the engineering line by $100,000 as mentioned by.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
No. Do I have another motion?
I'll make a motion to fully fund the engineering line and take the reductions as proposed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. The only thing I'll say is I still have that $700,000 for the property formerly known as the Alden property. So we'll see what happens by the time we get to the
What?
public. There's $700,000 in that for the Alden formerly known as the Alden property. And that still remaining in there. So we'll see if we get that grant or not and where it's funded and what we're gonna do with that. But we have another week to hopefully get the grant fully funded.
So we can rediscuss it.
We can rediscuss it after the public hearing.
Okay.
All of this, we're gonna rediscuss after the public hearing. So we have a motion and a second.
It has it in it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. The motion is the same as the finance committee that passed, which is removing 3.6 million from streets, bridges and culverts. So all in favor
Aye.
and opposed.
Aye.
So it's 4-1. Okay, we're done with capital for tonight. We get to do this again after the public hearing. Just because it's fun. So hopefully there's a little more clarity there after the public hearing. So operating tab 6, I'm gonna turn it over to the town manager. And I will say, we probably will have to find a way to group this so that we don't want to go through every line item in every department to try to come up with it. We can, but we don't want to.
Okay, we're gonna give you a handout in some minutes.
Okay.
So at our last meeting, you asked staff to return tonight to this, special meeting to, with a free cash recommendation and also present 3 hypothetical budget cut proposals. $100,000 in reductions, $250,000 in reductions, and $500,000 in reductions. So in just a minute, we're gonna, I'm gonna pass out the, 3 hypothetical proposals. But first, I just wanted to quickly address the free cash recommendation question. So we staff here we would like to see free cash remain roughly in the $1 million area, which is where it is currently. That's noted in tab 5, the balance of our free cash. And I say that tonight for 2 reasons. The first reason is that with significant reductions in our ops budget being proposed or discussed in a few minutes, supplemental turnbacks next year, we're expecting to be much lower. Much lower than past years. The second reason is that revenues are not as strong as they have been in recent years. There's some estimates in tab 3 in your budget books that are lower than what we were estimating for local receipts last year at this time. So that said, we're comfortable with the additional $150,000 in funding for Ramsdale that we discussed at a previous meeting. Coming off of that roughly $1 million general fund free cash balance. But we're not recommending any additional use of free cash in this budget for those two reasons I just mentioned.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
You mentioned turnbacks by staff. Can you help me with?
Unspent funds from the prior fiscal
Okay.
year.
And then the other, so as far as the free cash, you said Ramsdale, yes, but you're saying no other use, so is that like talking about the town building department and moving that out of free cash? I think we requested to look at that, right? Since whatever money is gonna get repaid by the other town for the arrangement that was made, we're gonna take that money out of free cash since it falls into that. You're saying that we shouldn't do that, or?
We're not recommending any additional.
Yeah,
use
so
of
that,
free cash.
you mean by that? Okay, thank you.
So one thing we talked about internally that we could do, and we will try to do, or near the end of this coming fiscal year, is bill our partner towns for this year's services prior to June 30th. I think as long as we, bill them and they pay us, relatively quickly, and I will have that conversation with my colleagues in our partner towns. We could see this year's money closing out to free cash to help buffer that.
Awesome. Okay.
So I'm gonna pass out.
I'm gonna pass out.
Here. We boiled it down to, I'll wait a minute until it makes its way around the table. Actually, I'm gonna just get it up on my screen here while.
Mark, would you be able to email that to me by any chance?
I'm gonna share that right now. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
And I haven't forgotten. This one.
Okay, so, Phil, can you get that at home?
Uh,
Are you seeing my screen?
I'm working on it. Yep, good, thank you.
So, we boiled it down to an easy to follow one sheeter that you have in front of you. For each reduction being proposed tonight, we've included, in the left-hand column, the department name, then followed by the account name, and then there are 4 tiers of one tier of reductions from the original round of, staff reviews, and then 3 tiers of cuts. Lining up with, the recommendations, the ask from our last meeting for 100,000, 250,000, and 500,000. So tier 2 and 3, you'll see, will reduce our staffing by 3.5 FTEs, or 6.5 FTEs. No positions are being proposed, to be cut in tier 1. And we did not specify at your request from our last meeting, which positions exactly we would, propose to eliminate in those, second 2 tiers, tier 2 and tier 3.
So Mark, I'm a bit confused by that. So you're saying you have expense reduction here going down, right? And we are saying, and then in addition, you would eliminate 3.5 full-time
There's the
positions?
last line item, if you see
At
the
the very
salary line items.
Very last one, so.
I see. So this is what you are, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So you can see, in tier two, salary line cuts are 95,500,
No, I see. Okay.
178, and then
Mhm.
the FTE numbers are just below that.
Okay.
I'm gonna scroll down for folks at home.
With your current reductions, we're already looking at 1.75. In full-time employee reduction.
Well, those, yes, one of those, for example, was the IT director, which,
Okay, so it's a person who wasn't actually.
correct.
So one of the things, and Mark knows how I feel, it's
Oh,
not Mark,
I
it's
see.
every budget's this way,
Oh.
is that's not a reduction, but it's listed as a reduction because there's no other way to put it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's a reduction from the original budget that was proposed by department heads. And then when they saw how high it was reduced, but we're not losing any human being.
The treasurer collector's office also requested another part-time employee, that's included in that 1.75. But no staff is being proposed, no staff cuts are being proposed in the town manager reduction column or in tier one.
But in tier 2, 3, those are people who currently have positions though.
Tier two and tier three are currently employed folks, correct? So just to put it a little into perspective here for you, what these cuts actually mean. Tier one, $100,000 reduces our budget from 12.9% over fiscal 24 to 12.22%. Tier two, $250,000 in cuts reduces our budget from 12.9% over fiscal 24 to 11.19%. And tier three, $500,000 in cuts reduces our budget over fiscal 24, again, from 12.9% to 9.48%. And just to throw a little more information at you, what that means in tax rate cents, 5 cents, 13 cents, 25 cents,
5 cents, 13 cents.
25 cents.
Mark, a question just mechanically. Did you think about a way to be able to show us these numbers without what I'll characterize as the very temporary increase in the inspector budget? Based on the lag between the cost incurred and the reimbursements from the other towns.
This is the buildings.
Yeah, I'm not sure I follow the ask though.
I think he's saying the 241 is in the budget. right?
Correct.
But eventually, it's gonna sort of balance out.
Right, and that's about 2% of our total current budget as it stands now, before any other reductions are made.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
All right, the tier 3, this is 6.5 actual human beings that will be losing their job. I feel badly about that, and I'm wondering if there's some way we could rework numbers. So I don't know if these people live in Great Barrington, but it's already tough, as we all know, to live here. And if you're going to be losing a job in this town, you're going to be in deep doo-doo. I would love to see people not lose their jobs in the tight economy that we have. And if there's some other way to work it, I would be for it. I don't have a solution, but I just think it's horrible. If you live, especially living in Great Barrington, it's a tough place to live, man, without a job.
I would say the only way for us to hit those numbers, 250 and 500, was to eliminate positions. Most of what you see, all of what you see in tier 1 is programming cuts or cuts to donations, subsidies, for example, the veterans lease, the American Legion lease. Those are some of the reductions we made in that. But there are others, but that we can go through line by line if you like. But
I have a question here. And I'm sorry, the town manager reductions, these are the previous reductions that we already saw when you presented, right? Is that
Correct. The green column
Yeah, that was
is the
what-
budget as presented at
Wait, when we had
12.9%.
that, okay. So I'm just looking at the cuts here, and it seems in most cases, it's this kind of a soft type of a cost, which is, training, travel, publication, things like that. Then there are few of our that are more kind of substantial that I don't necessarily know, what was actually planned for that spending. But it seems that really the push is into the salary line. You know what I mean? Like, because if I really look at the proposed reduction, we are just kind of skimming here and there.
Yeah.
And then we are saying, but the real cut's gonna come from people. More or less, because you're looking at it, 278,000 out of 500,000 will come from people. 95,000 out of 250 will come out of people.
Right, I think as you go up in
Reduction.
years, more.
It will
positions
be
are-
more. So basically what you are saying is you don't really have much to cut there, or maybe you don't want to cut really deep into it. And it's just kind of it would have to go through staff reduction.
Every tier we go up, it becomes more.
Right,
more
right,
difficult to
becomes
find
bigger
big numbers.
portion of it. And I kind of wonder if there is something actually that could be done with the expense cuts more as opposed to staff reduction.
This is
you
their
know.
recommendation. We can do whatever we
Right,
like,
right,
but
no,
this
I'm
is their
just asking
recommendation.
for his professional opinion here, we will decide whatever, but I want to hear from you because
Yeah,
you manage, these
So-
operations here.
staff reductions were a last resort. and
No, I
that's why
understand
tier
that, I totally
one
understand that,
didn't
but what I'm
include
saying is there something that you could do that somehow would transform how certain department works, or, what do they do, how they do things? Maybe don't do things that are not really that necessary. Some cuts more of strategic kind of a nature to get into some bigger number there, as opposed to saying we are gonna be laying people off.
It's only reduced salaries perhaps, not.
No,
I mean, could be different things, but I just don't really, except for the American Legion and the veterans, I don't really see much of like substantial cuts
Mhm.
within the operation. It's just kind of the little stuff that people can live without.
So Eric
Yeah,
was next.
yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess when I look at this and, again, I guess all these cuts, it comes down to, again, like, I don't see any of these as being permanent, I see these as being 1 year, and then if we did say we did go drastic and did tier 3 cuts, just the next few years, the request is gonna be higher and back, and everybody's gonna be upset because the service is suffering from town hall, and so I understand that, and I think that was, and maybe I misread it, but I think that was just like, let's just get our eyes on it to see how drastic it would be. I'm, with the town operational budget here, everybody wants to save some money, but I'm nervous to cut in too deep, and obviously tier 1 is gonna be the most painful one right away, I mean, no one wants to cut services to the VFW. No one wants to cut services to American Legion, or at least I don't want to do that. I don't want to cut youth programming. So I guess after I look at this, and then I just quickly added numbers in my head from what we did just cut, I think it was close to 5 million, if I'm not mistaken, from the capital's budget, or 4 something. I mean, I feel like we need to regroup a little bit before we go crazy and cut this operation budget down to 9.4 while saving 25 cents on 1,000, I'm assuming that number is. I just would like to hit the brakes for a second and just, like, let's analyze. All right, so Bill made a good point that, this 283, we're thinking half or a little more than half is gonna come back in the free cash. What's, that there's an actual savings there in the way my mind computes it. But I just feel like we should regroup, and after we just did those cuts, get some more numbers back in front of us of what the budget increase is gonna be after that. After all those suggestions and cuts we just made,
Most of
Feel
those
a lot
are
better
borrowed.
looking at this.
Most
they're
of
not
those
gonna
are
be-
They are borrowing, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
definitely. So let me say a
It's not
couple
that
things
slowly,
then
yeah.
Ann. What this shows, and Melina has already said this, is our biggest problem is debt service and revenue.
Right,
We don't have a fat budget.
no, there's
And
nothing
therefore,
there, yeah.
if you, and every budget, I know the school is somewhere around 75% of benefits and personnel. I'm sure we're up there too.
Yeah,
So when you start to cutting paper clips, I'm gonna bring it down.
yeah.
It's cutting personnel. Can I assume, and I have a question, are the salary line items, is that just salary or is that benefits also?
Just-
Or are you figuring that there's gonna be there's gonna be unemployment, so that's gonna probably,
At this point, it's just salaries.
Okay.
Salaries,
It's
yeah.
not, it's not,
Can you, you know, can you, or is it possible to say what kind of positions would go?
we had asked
No.
not to do that.
Oh,
because
okay,
it
yeah, because
affects morale. If we're not interested in doing it,
right,
I don't want people in the town hall to say, oh, my position almost got cut
Right.
because the town manager
right,
recommended it.
right, I got it.
Ann, go ahead.
I guess, I think, I think we can assume that if 6.5 or even 3.5 positions were cut, services would decline. And I mean, exactly what those are, we don't know, but I think we can assume that. I think I agree with what other people have said. I think we're sort of trying to sort of make cuts to such, small, aside from positions where gonna just be sort of a paperclip here and a paperclip there. I do think, I don't know, I was going back through my notes. There are some places I think we can make some cuts in the budget if we start to go through the various budget departments.
Which we will do after
Right,
the
exactly,
public
I
hearing, you're
understand.
right, Ann.
But I think it's hard, and I think we're gonna have a tough year. But I do think if we can start to get a handle on borrowing, I think we're looking ahead to the next year where we just can't keep doing this borrowing, we just can't.
Yeah.
Or else we really have to, in the next year, going into the budget season, operating budget's flat and there's no movement. I mean, that's just the only way we can control this.
And the other thing I'd like us to look at, maybe I've just missed it, is a historical perspective on revenue. Where we started 5 years ago, where we are now, and then we kind of project where we're gonna be.
I think that would be, this is the other thing, we do this sort of like we do this deflated projection every year. We don't have a realistic projection from year to year.
Or if we do, maybe I missed it, but I'd like to see, hotel, motel, meals,
Right, no, I understand,
cannabis,
yeah.
and see them outlined where we've gone for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
We knew cannabis would go down, we're
Right,
not
right.
surprised.
Mhm.
Don, did you want to say anything? As I said, if you wanted to speak, you could. You don't have to.
I feel, no, I'm fine.
Okay, I just didn't want to go back. I like Eric's idea, not because I want to get out of here quickly. So let's have the public hearing. And then let's regroup after the public hearing and try to figure out where we're gonna go.
Don't we
Yep.
have to make a recommendation at the public hearing?
We have to make a recommendation after, but we would normally vote after the public hearing. When is the last day to vote on the budget? Does anybody know that?
we don't, there's no firm date, we just, staff needs time to.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, I don't mean a legal date.
I mean, we were thinking February 28th would be the night, the public hearing night would be the night.
But what I'm saying, for staff to do this without.
There's room for movement there.
Okay.
We'll come back to you.
So we'll come back after the public hearing, go through departments, go through the new capital. And then decide, are we gonna vote that night after the public hearing? Or are we gonna continue to look at this? We may be able to get it done on the 28th, but
Can I?
Of course.
I guess I would beg to differ. So you're proposing that we just stop now and discuss all these budgets at the public hearing? Cause
after the public hearing.
after the,
I don't understand what after the public hearing means. After the 28th, then we have another meeting?
No, there's
no,
already,
no.
the public hearing happens on the 28th, and always after the public hearing.
There's
Immediately after,
the
we
public-
start discussing what people have said to us.
Yeah,
So what then happens is we go through each department, we go through capital. If we finish at night, fine. If we don't, we continue. I don't hear anyone with an appetite for doing what they've presented. Not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's just, I don't hear anybody saying, I make a motion to do tier 3 cuts.
So can I just suggest
Yeah, of course.
something? I looked at those cuts and I think maybe those little cuts, whatever we are talking about, that's maybe another 40,000 here. And I think we can totally take it. Should be an easy one. I would suggest that we really need to have a good sense of the debt service. And I know you will have to make some assumptions, but I think we need to understand the cost based on the reductions we just discussed today for this year, but also on an annualized basis for the following year. I think that's gonna be really the critical number, more so than for this year. And I know you will have to, assume certain things and all that, but it's just kind of a ballpark to provide the direction, because I think without that, I don't see how we could make any decisions really. Because we know
Yeah,
what the
yeah.
budget.
Let me, can I follow up on that? Yeah, I agree with what Melina is saying. I guess I would ask that, with respect to the borrowings, I would ask if town staff could, looking at page 2 of the 2-pager that I sent to town staff, I would like to request the town staff provide some type of estimate of actual borrowings for the fiscal 25, which would help us calculate an estimated debt service for fiscal 26. And
Let him finish it, of course.
I would certainly offer up my time if I could be of assistance or participate in any discussion with town staff. If they don't want me involved, that's okay too. But I realize it's not an easy estimate to make, but I think it would be appropriate to have something like that in the next discussion.
Garfield?
Couple things. One is, I like the idea of regrouping. I really don't want to see these 6.5 people go. And when they do, let's say they do, the town pays the unemployment, is that correct?
Yeah, that's,
So,
it's usually thought of as a wash between health insurance and unemployment for the year. That's why health insurance isn't figured in there. There's a large savings in health insurance, but you're gonna be paying unemployment, so it's a wash.
Well, that was my question. If you're paying unemployment, are you actually really saving any money?
Well, you're saving the salary, you're not saving the insurance line item, that's correct.
Well, that's not anything the right. Well, I would like to, I agree with Eric and your thought too of regrouping and looking at this again, and there's gotta be some way. I like to think that we don't have to cut people, but we can cut other costs. Just add 6.5 more people to the 400 people waiting for a place to look. It doesn't excite.
So just to clarify, so when we come back for the public hearing, we'll be able to take off, the amendments we made to the capital budget, and we'll have a sense of where we are with the tax rate, what we've taken off this tonight. So we'll come back and we'll have a sense of where we are.
But the question, sorry, but the capital borrowing's not affecting next year's tax rate, so none of this is really about. And I still think, I guess, I'm going, as I went through my notes here, there are places where I thought we all raised some places that we thought there could be some cuts to the operating budget. I'm not saying it's a lot. I mean, it's probably very, very little.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm also looking ahead. I mean, if we come out of the public hearing and we, can't recommend the budget as it is, then what?
We schedule another meeting.
Then we have to schedule another meeting. I also feel with the amount that we've struggled with this budget, I guess I want to be able to go in front of the town and encourage them to support the budget we're putting forth. And I just feel I would like to go through the operating budgets again. I'm a little nervous about waiting for the public hearing. I mean, I know it's 7, but we have
Well, I
to
don't care
start.
about that.
I mean,
And I think, same with Ann, like as we went through the budget, I have notes saying cut.
and
If I add my
I'm
total up,
willing
you
to
add your
own where
total
I
up,
think there should
we
be
might
cuts.
actually find,
I don't think we will, but let's start. That's what I'm here.
Right, let's see how it goes.
Okay, right.
Well, that's what Ann is saying.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, but Lee's agreeing with me, so I'm not totally.
I have to get.
Okay, one more point about this. I appreciate the work that Mark and his team put together to put these schedules together. You know, I don't think anyone is advocating firing people. But I think it's sort of a painful homework exercise to understand, you know, how do we get to meaningful cuts in the operating budget? And this makes it very tangible that it implies, you know, terminating a handful of people, and it makes it very clear. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, so please humor me on this. Let's just try to concentrate on what we think are viable reductions in each page. So I'll start.
So wait, what's happening?
What would you have, please?
We're-
Oh, tab six,
Tab 6.
it's the operating budget.
I'm gonna go just through each page in order.
Oh, wait, can you just get this one, sorry? That's not really-
Tab 6, page 1.
Wait.
What's the question?
That's the other problem that Mark points out, is we didn't ask staff to come tonight. So you want any explanation from the staff here?
Some staff are here, but in fairness to the rest of them, they're not here to answer questions.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
defend whatever.
That's a very good point, yeah.
Discuss.
Good point.
So should they'll all come to the public hearing?
They've all been asked to come to the public hearing. I'm not suggesting you delay. I just want to put that out there.
Well, so if all coming to the public hearing, should we bring our list then so that they can answer? 'Cause
Well, that's what we were gonna do.
Can I make just
All right.
a comment? Yeah, this is my second year in doing this, and I just feel that, there's so much work behind the scenes. You talked about the hundreds of hours that go into this. And then you compile this budget, we get it for 3 or 4 days before the meeting. And it feels like if we have a discussion that it, you know, and we're saying, what we're doing the library. I mean, that was one of my bugaboos, was the library, with the nice librarian, we want to support our library. But when the discussion got to, audiobooks and the cost of audiobooks, I think it would be, you know, I was like, wow, we can go to CW Mars, we can go to Boston Library where they probably have more funding, so why are we doing this? And why is it based on who's on the wait list? I mean, I get audiobooks all the time, and if it's a very popular book, it seems you wait. And that seemed to be a cost that I think we could really, you know, it's small, I get it, but still, I think it's a good cost. Yeah.
Could I amend my request? So I really think it's important to have the department heads in the room when we go through this, and I would hate to go through this and then have questions, so I would amend what I asked. You know, wait for the public hearing, wait for the department heads to be here, but do our homework and actually go and have our cuts at the public hearing, so if it comes back and we're starting to go line by line, we can say, well, this.
I agree, but
I don't think doing it right now.
Have Joe feel like or at the library,
Well, no.
new librarian, figuring that we're, you know, not attacking, but
That's where
that
we
we're
are.
not supporting them.
It's either that or cutting stack, so
You know,
we're at that
so,
point, so
Yeah.
I
so
would just
I
request that
think
we
that
wait.
there's a problem just in how this process works, that sometimes you just want to have a discussion. And it's not about, you know, I mean, it may be about a department, but it's not necessarily about the department head, that I think they're doing a lot of good work.
No, you're right, no, it's not a process problem. It's a problem that we are in a society, we have an open meeting, and people are gonna advocate for their department and say, no, you shouldn't cut this. This really affects me. You want them to be passionate, and we're gonna have to make the tough decisions. And yeah, people are gonna be upset with us. And people are gonna be upset with us if we come back with a 12% increase. They're gonna be upset with us if we cut audiobooks.
I just don't want to make it feel like we're just rubber stamping and here it is, okay.
I don't know about you, Madonna, but we've been here, this is our 5th meeting. I don't feel like we're rubber stamping. That ended 4 meetings ago. Go ahead, Michelle.
Michelle Lemare, 70 Division Street, as having served on the finance committee, I'd like to assure the public it's not rubber stamped, at all. It's actually run right into the ground, pretty much. I just wanted to say something. I'm turning 66 in a couple weeks and I should be looking at retirement. Instead, I'm looking at getting a second job. I work 15 hours a week at Lennox Public Schools. And I can't make ends meet. My husband and I were looking at the budget. There are town employees that actually make more than my husband and I together. So not everyone is gonna be able to afford this. My taxes already went up several $100s. Firstly, myself, you know I will be speaking at the public hearing, but I would prefer to see due diligence done before the public hearing. And I can at least say, you know, they looked at that. And after they talked it out, you know, I'm gonna let that one go. For example, what Mark just presented to the Select Board Finance Committee, which I would like a copy of, thank you. There's a psychology when you start saying cutting people. I work on budgets too. Again, I'm in a public sector. So what the newspaper's gonna pick up, oh, Great Barrington's gonna cut positions. I don't think that's going to be the case. What I would prefer to see is any projected new positions, like you talked about the tech director, put a hold on it.
It's not in there.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm talking about, rather than cutting positions that are a clerk in the whatever.
Let's not
office.
name anything, because we haven't.
No,
That'll
it's just,
be the headline.
yeah, well, let's see. But in any event, but when someone retires or leaves a position, if now we have an HR person analyze that and say, okay, is this position, can this position, the duties be dispersed among other employees? Rather than keeping the position. That way, you know, again, I'd like to see an effort made. Not necessarily it's going to happen, but no, we looked at this is the figures, are you good with it? And the only way I, as a voter, can do that is know you went through the operating budget and did that. And then at the end of the day, if it means, okay, it's gonna mean 2 cents off the tax rate, is it really worth it? You know, but again, I need to see that. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Ann.
I mean, I guess I thought tonight's meeting the plan was to do because I did go through and, but I thought we were gonna go over the operating budget.
We were hoping not to have to do that because it becomes very messy, and we were hoping that the staff would be able to, and they've done a good job, I'm not criticizing, would be able to say, this is tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, but clearly not everyone, some people are, one of the things we didn't say to them is don't cut people. I don't know how you do this budget without cutting people. I'm not advocating cutting people, but
We knew that.
yeah,
We knew
but
that.
I'm hearing that that's not something people want.
Right, but yeah.
So, but I don't know how you reduce the budget, because you're gonna be cutting people and you're gonna have to put them in buildings with no heat and no paper, because that's the only way you're gonna get down to something you want.
But I guess I just wanna go to Michelle's point also. I mean, again, my struggle is we're now gonna go into a public hearing and the public will speak on the budget. And we haven't gone back to the budget to make what we think are the cuts we can make. And to me, it seems like we're doing it. But again, I guess there's nothing we can.
Yeah,
we don't
can I,
have years.
can I take
Yeah, I
another, let me take another stab at it. It's a challenging thing we're trying to do here, to state the obvious. I'm very sympathetic to what Steve is saying about the fact that, you know, going through and really microanalyzing department budgets without the department head being there. I think that's important. I'm not sure how productive that is if they're not here to answer any questions. I think to me, what I take away from this list, and I'm a little handicapped because I only see half of it at one time, is that, you know, we can take a position that let's accept the town manager's cuts in tier 1 and tier 2, but generally excluding any cuts to payroll. So we would be accepting, you know, it's relatively small numbers in the overall budget, but we'd be accepting cuts to software, we'd be accepting cuts to publications, we'd be accepting all, you know, the cuts to training, cuts to perhaps police additional equipment, for example. So to me, that's the high level position that we could take as sort of an operating, a tentative operating plan going into the discussion with the department heads at the public meeting.
Yeah, I agree with Phil. I think that is pretty doable, and did you discuss any of these cuts, Mark, with, your departmental head? Or
No,
some of
not
them,
yet. We
not,
have a department head meeting scheduled for tomorrow
for
morning.
tomorrow morning?
So let me play devil's advocate
Yeah.
on this, and I would have made the same cuts that Mark did, because it's farther away from town operations. But what you're gonna endorse is tier one, and tier one is veterans and children.
Oh, yeah, no,
But
no,
we-
no,
we-
no,
we-
not
No, but we,
Let's go for it.
no, we
Yeah.
said there would be just the easy ones, you know, the publications, travel training, whatever, things like that. There are lines that are the American Legion lease and the Veterans lease that I think was very clear, people would not want to really, want to cut. And then there is the youth programming, I think that was Eric's suggestion, I think it was very good. But I think there are like lots of these like very little expenses, but then when you add them up, as I did, it's like about 40 grand. And I think that would be, definitely something that is doable. And maybe we don't need to have a conversation with people about that. And if we're gonna go beyond that, then I think they need to be in the room because, you know, we may not know everything. We may not really make the right decision.
Good,
without
whatever
that.
everybody wants to do, I told my wife I'd be home
So,
around 10,
Melina-
so I got lots of time.
I was a little more optimistic, I said 9:30. So what you're saying, Elena, is we look at the 1,000, so we're tier two.
I would even go to tier 3 because there are some additional, you know, travel and training numbers that we could pick up at the tier 3.
You're saying kind of look at this a la carte essentially.
Yeah, and then just really leave out the things that would be, you know, more controversial, would be really kind of cutting some capabilities. And definitely, you know, not to do anything about the staff reduction.
So am I understanding that you're proposing that they don't consider the salary line items, but
Right.
just all of the other items above? that?
Which would be about $250,000 cut, it looks like.
Yeah, but I'm saying there are also within that, there are a
600.
few other lines that I don't think you would want to cut at this moment.
Correct.
Unless you have a conversation with people from those departments, because there are more substantive cuts. But there are enough of these like little ones, you know, that are 500, 1,000, 2,000 kind of numbers that we could add up very quickly.
So are we, just to clarify, so looking at tier 3 and looking, saying that that's the baseline, no salaries, and just adding those up and basically saying.
Right, except those big ones.
Except the big ones.
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that would.
They're saying have a discussion about
Yeah.
these and
That's
kind of
correct.
which level
Yeah.
we want for these,
Right,
leaving out the salary, so kind of
Leaving out the
looking
salaries,
at a total cut between.
Yeah.
250 to 100. essentially.
right, kind of close, yeah,
right.
yeah.
Bill, you
Yeah,
have your
yeah.
hand up?
Yeah, I think we're asking Mark to kind of re-sort his schedule a bit to create a scenario where it's exactly what we've been talking about. We're accepting some of the cuts that in our opinion, which is partially informed, we're taking a view that it's relatively easy. It's relatively easy to cut, you know, the training and the software and some of the soft expenses. And some of them are in tier 1 and some of them are in tier 2 and some of them are in tier 3. But then we're taking the position that we don't want to cut individuals and we don't want to cut the veterans funding. So we need to ask Mark to create another column there.
No, I think
I'm sorry, and you're right, it gets you probably somewhere between 100 and 200.
So I
Maybe.
think the right way of doing this is someone make a motion and give specific directions of what you want, because I'm not sure what everyone wants. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess-
No, I haven't clarified it.
I'm sort of against, Phil, and usually I agree with you, but I'm against. asking
You're allowed to
Mark do another-
disagree, yeah.
Yeah, I would say, let's go through
Yeah.
this list here and say,
We can say
yeah, we'll go for that,
Yeah.
we accept
It's
that.
easy.
And then tell Mark the lines we don't accept.
Yep.
And then let's come back with a revised budget. I assume by then that budget, the revised budget will include, so whatever the operating budget is, will include the cut we are, yeah?
Yeah.
So we know what we're approving?
I think we probably wouldn't go through every department and make those adjustments until you vote, but we can give you another one sheeter that will show you what the impacts of your cuts
Yeah.
are.
And when are we voting then?
February 29th?
So we're voting at the next meeting, no?
Yes.
Yeah,
If we can, if we can.
right, so
February
we
28th.
have new budgets to vote on.
I'm back.
No, because this is still a preliminary vote. He's not gonna go through every line of every page.
I'm not saying we're voting tonight. I'm saying, let's say select board, contracted services, you're at tier 3, there were 3,000. I would say I'd like to see what the budget would look like with that cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
So we can say.
But he's not gonna go through every page and print out new pages.
No, no,
No,
no,
no,
at least
no,
we'll have
no,
a
no,
sense
no,
of
no.
what.
We'll
this-
just have a one page.
Yeah,
But
one
how
page
can
of what
we-
this equals. to.
Summary,
But
yeah.
then how can we approve a budget at the budget hearing if we don't have a budget?
We'll have a sense of how much we're taking.
You
off
can
of
have it,
this
you
and
can
how
have
much
one
we're
page
having.
with, which you have right here, that's gonna incorporate the cut in it, because he doesn't give the detail in
Do
it.
you know where the cut is, or we just know an amount?
No, but you just know the amount, and
It'll
it's
be
just
the
gonna, you have
amount.
the departmental
the effect
number,
on the tax
total
rate.
number, you are just gonna reduce it by whatever you are reducing it here.
It'll be like the effect on the tax rate and.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
pretty
the big
simple,
number.
yeah.
Because do you
I'm
think-
not probably gonna feel comfortable voting on this, but everybody else can vote if
At least
that's
it's a
the
way we've
starting
always
point.
done
It's a starting
It's-
point, so we can.
We-
go
we-
No,
through
all-
we've gotten revised pages. Am I misremembering? We get revised
But you
pages?
can have just the full budget.
Not at this-
And can be revised.
I'm not saying tonight, but for the budget hearing.
That's a,
I'm not gonna vote on a budget that I don't see.
you're probably not voting.
Then I think I won't be voting.
But is everyone agreeing with us to go through this and
Yeah.
and have something so we
Okay.
can start, because we'll have this, and
Yeah.
then we'll have the operating. budget.
Because I can't go.
I'm not gonna be there either.
What, again?
The 28th. Is it on the 29th?
Oh, here.
What's the 28th?
28th, sorry.
That's the memorial, so I'm not gonna be.
It's been on the calendar forever, it's something.
I know.
Richard,
Been
can I
advertised.
share the
See
handout?
that people die.
Yeah, I know.
Can I share the
You
handout?
gotta do it.
Of course, of course.
Okay, tell me where we're going.
I moved it to the.
That's,
So do we just, should we, do you guys wanna look at tier 3 and
Yeah.
go through that?
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
tier
That-
three
that-
incorporates
yeah.
one and
Yeah,
two.
let's do, yeah,
Yes.
let's do 3, okay.
Okay, I need people to concentrate, I need the audience to be quiet,
Yeah, yeah.
so we can do this.
Who's leading it, or do you got finance committee, do you wanna go through tier
Sure,
3
sure.
and just say?
So, one suggestion is 3,000
Yeah.
from the contracted service
Fine.
select.
Yep, yes,
Anybody feel,
fine.
Yeah.
1,000 from publications?
yes,
Yep. 2,000 from travel
Yes.
training,
yes,
500, no, I'm sorry, 100
100,
from
yes.
finance committee.
sure.
That's it. 1,000 from, I'm sorry,
No,
so, I'm sorry,
15,000.
15,000
Yeah.
from technology?
Yes.
Okay,
I guess I'd like to know what that is.
I know, we're getting really fast.
Well,
Before we just agree.
There's some impact, and again, and this was, you were modeling like worst case scenario in tier three,
Tier
right?
3 is worst case scenario. correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like, these will have real
But
impact.
he recommended.
tier
it.
one,
Yeah,
Proposed.
but he, yeah.
But that was his recommending of, so I guess
Not
like,
for all
what
the
is this
software-
our
software
Airbnb
licenses.
software?
just
Yeah.
expanding all.
Is that what
Yeah,
that
but
is?
not
Yes.
for all three things that we.
I don't know what that is.
It is.
So,
So first of all, you,
You know.
you wanted to cut things. Well, we don't know what we're cutting.
I think we should just go back to the old fashioned way of going through the budgets and making cuts.
But Mark, you recommended in the tier 3, 15,000. I look at the total budget, it's 330,000, which is pretty substantial budget.
Are you in technology?
Yeah,
Yes.
technology, yeah.
I can tell you exactly what that is.
What is it?
Short-term rental
Is it,
platform.
Why is it that and not something else in that?
yeah, something
All
else?
the other software programs are essential for our offices, you know, accounting software, things like that. The only reason I suggested this is because it isn't an essential.
You mean for the operations?
It is, right.
Yeah.
It's a relatively new bylaw and I know, trust me, I don't wanna make any cuts anywhere here. So again, difficult decisions were made in the green column. It only gets more difficult as we move to the right here. You know, it's just a recommendation.
So do you have a list, when you put these numbers here, can we say, okay, what is this, 1,000? And then you'd say, yes.
Yes.
I mean, is that?
Yeah, I mean, we can
We want to
answer,
get that finite in
That's
terms of.
what I
we can answer some of the questions. Again,
Okay.
not every department head is here tonight that's being
At least the ones that
impacted,
you.
but
Okay.
But we can write them down for when they are here, so.
Right, you can ask those
Let's get more
questions, yeah,
discussion
yeah.
at the next.
Okay, so ones
Yeah,
that we
let's
have
continue,
questions,
yeah.
all right, so.
Okay.
Stop the writing.
Can we, so I would back the top, is that very?
Yeah.
Okay.
so. Do you mind if I just explain the top ones that we kind of move
Yes.
through them quickly? So,
Yeah.
so select board contracted services. That's a line that we have available to us, for example, the Houston Board of Works financial evaluation study. That part of that study was funded out of this line. So this is a line I have in my budget so that when the select board asks for some particular study, I can hire.
But Mark,
engineer,
I'm sorry,
you know.
3,000, that doesn't cover anything for any study, so.
No, it's just a piece of the. budget.
Right.
By the time we got to tier three, we're looking for hundreds of
No,
dollars.
no, I know, but what I'm saying is like you cannot have any study for $3,000.
He didn't say you'd have a study for 3,000. He said there's a larger line item. He took 3,000, it's a
Oh,
fraction.
out of it, okay.
Yes.
So what
Not
is the
eliminating
total, what is the total line?
It's 8,000,
8,000?
which was already been cut from
That seems
20,
very low.
well, no, it's 8,000.
Okay, again, he's in tier 3 and he's cutting Band-Aids and paper clips. He's
Well-
trying to find what he can, because this isn't revenue, this
Okay,
isn't
all right.
debt service,
And
this is operating.
You're currently recommended to fund it at 8,000 after cutting it from 28,000.
No,
No.
because
No?
20,000 was moved up to social media. And I
Oh, you
do
just moved
remember,
I just moved it.
Gotcha.
I do remember that we had a conversation the very first night, that because if this were funded as a sort of social media position, because it's cheaper than contracted services, potentially that 20,000 could be reduced to 10,000.
So I did hear you,
Mhm.
and I didn't recommend that, and I'll tell you why briefly. I think information is
see.
really, really important. And, I think cutting that line means fewer
Okay,
press releases.
okay, I can-
Less social media posts, things like that.
So you're keeping the 20,000, but cutting the 8,000 to 5,000 in the contract. Okay. See, this is helpful.
Publications, $1,000 trim there. That's the line we use to print, our town reports. We haven't been printing as many of them, as we have in prior years, so I just trimmed $1,000 off there. I thought that's somewhere we could grab a little money. Again, my overall budget is only up 0.84%, so there's not a lot of room to move here. Travel training, this will mean, fewer trainings available to my staff and to the select board.
Ellie, you have some concerns there? Are you
A lot
concerned
of the
everywhere?
trainings that I attend are with respect to regulation changes and law changes.
I'm required to do 40 hours of training to keep my credential manager status. I hope that I can continue to attend the number of things I need to attend, in the current budget, but again, by the time we hit tier 3, we're just looking for
Yeah.
anything we can.
Just go through each one, Mark.
Mhm,
We're not
I
gonna find it.
All right, finance committee travel training, $100. We just recommended that, in tier 3 because I don't think it's been used in
No, we
years.
don't use
Yeah, we never use that, yeah.
Technology, again, $15,000 for term rental software. Assessor's office supplies, trying to think of why. I believe it was just based on historical usage. Yeah, that's exactly what that was.
Yeah, that's a good
And
one.
Yeah, and again, Ross is not here tonight. You know, if he needs that done for, some trainings, I'm not aware of that at this point, so I don't need to speak up and chime in. Travel training, same thing. Again, I did not discuss any of these tier 3 recommendations with staff. Because I wasn't sure if it was even necessary, but we are meeting tomorrow morning.
Okay.
At 9 o'clock. collector treasurer, $500 travel training, human resources, $200 travel training, and town clerk, $400 travel training. That's tier 2 and 3.
In human resources.
Mhm.
So with a new person, I mean, they're probably gonna need to attend some of these
Yes.
trainings.
Doesn't cut it off.
I would think that that would not be something that is viable.
Well, this person is a human resource professional and has been in that job before, so if we are cutting training for others.
I think in her discussion with us, about this particular line item, she was saying that these trainings keep her abreast of HR issues.
She actually asked for 1,000 additional.
Yeah,
Right, she was asking for an additional 1,000.
yeah, she said that it was mistakenly cut.
You'll see travel training in here as a conflict. I just kind of try to spread it out over all the departments. We just took $100 here, $300 from every department, just to spread it out.
Yeah, as long as I can see it, that's fine.
So I think the question we have to ask, and I'll let Mark go ahead, but, you know, what's $1,000 cut is how much on the tax rate? You told me that.
So we ran a little test, a a week ago or so, $25,000.
It's called blue collar.
Okay.
Do you wanna just mute everybody?
Yeah.
$25,000 in cuts to our general fund budget, reduced the tax rate by $0.01. That gives you some context.
So the question we have to ask, and I think you know how I feel, cutting 400 in travel. Is that really getting us anything, or is it just hampering the employee?
It's not really about that, it's just really, what I was suggesting is, this is kind of the low hanging fruit, so, you know, these are so expensive, I mean. Otherwise, we are saying to really move it, we cut people, we don't want to cut people, right? So when, this is the minimum we can do, I'm not saying it's gonna, you know, but every cut that you're gonna do is gonna add up to. another
Maybe I
cut.
wasn't clear,
Yeah.
what I was trying
Yeah.
to say is, if we're saving a penny on the tax rate, but we're hampering an employee from doing their job.
No, that's not, I think, what we are suggesting.
Well, why
We're
don't
just
we
saying-
hear back from the employees?
But that's
what
the
they
whole
want
point,
to
is
do?
there are gonna be some training that will be really necessary, just because they need to, you know, maintain their, you know, accreditation or whatever. So these are not gonna be cuts, right? I mean, but that's the conversation for Mark to have. And there will be others that maybe are not used, maybe are not really necessary, so that's really, I mean, the other option, Steve, is to cut people. I mean, if you want to move anything on the operating budget, which I don't think we want to do really, so. Yeah, I mean, none of these cuts are really, you know, something anyone.
Yeah, I'm just not sure how you
That's
can tell me
go-
that's not hampering staff when
No,
the
but
staff isn't here to tell me.
No, but that goes back to my point, you know, it's not about the expensive here, right? It's about the revenue, so.
And I guess,
But how can you reduce, you know, these tremendous increases, you know, in people's tax bills?
But
You have to
the
do
only
it.
one way to do that,
Yeah,
And-
you have to do it.
cut
Yeah.
people.
You have to.
Well-
cut.
And I'm not saying we should do that, but that's the only way, that's the
Yeah.
majority of our
Yeah.
budget.
I think one way to
I see
defend
so.
an increase in the
I
tax
wanna
bill, which
talk and I just don't wanna.
Yeah,
jump ahead of
I
you.
don't want my tax bill to rise,
Yeah.
as well, but I also don't want essential services and the morale of the town staff that provide those services to, you know, we want the town that we actually feel serves our needs well, that's what our tax bill
No,
goes for.
we all agree on that, but you know what, there are people who just cannot afford.
I
mean,
understand that,
People
and
who are in a different financial situation.
And if we start
perhaps
taking
than
money
you and I,
away from, you know,
You know,
if we're
so,
putting together streets with chewing gum, that's gonna become our auto bills, you know, it's like it hits us one way or the other, you know, it's like. We need to run the town, we are responsible to the people for providing these services. And we're responsible to the staff to give them what they need to provide these services, we're going to be, this is a hard choice either way.
We're also responsible for the town in Great Barrington to give them the best tax rate possible. I don't have a problem with cutting $400 here, $400 there.
But I think
Well,
that's
that's
the
not
point,
gonna
it's not gonna make it, it's not
It's not gonna
gonna
make a
make
but you know, you cannot really think about it, it's 400 here, 400 there, because it adds up, okay? And
It adds up,
It's-
and I don't think we have the right.
You just this is your responsibility, I mean, this is why we are you know, in this position. I mean, we are managing on behalf of these people.
Yeah, we're
Right?
also
So
responsible.
we are responsible. If it's a penny, it's a penny. I don't care. It just
Right.
has to go.
Well, and I'm not advocating cutting staff, but the
Yeah.
only way to save enough money to make a difference is to cut staff.
I hear you, but we collectively decided
Well, we
that
haven't
was not.
gone
an
through
option.
everything yet, have we?
So-
Again, got something to look at, the heads of staff, the departments, the women do. And I don't think it's fair to tell everyone that $400 is not gonna make a difference in their tax when you got people who don't have a place to
Okay,
live.
let me repeat what I said before, because I'm not being clear. If we cut $400, yes, I said it won't make a big difference in the tax rate. But if an employee who, and it's essential to do their job, needs that $400 and we're cutting it. And we don't know we're not, because we don't know, we just know we're cutting 400 from HR. We don't know what that's for.
But Steve, we said
You don't
that
know if
Mark
the staff
will
has
go
a
back
problem with
and
that,
he will
whether it's
determine if some of these people need to have those
I'm gonna
training.
let you and then.
Bill had his hand up
Yeah.
first. I need
Yeah.
to, I don't want to jump ahead here.
Yeah.
Phil, go ahead. You're muted, Phil.
Bill, you're muted on your end.
I did not raise my hand, I'm sorry.
Oh, well, then I'm happy. I guess I'm looking at, I understand the sort of, 400 here, but, the assessor travel and training has gone up from 1,000 to 1,500, when in fiscal year 23, 379 were spent, and thus far only 140 were spent. To me, $500, maybe we should say travel and training should be flat. Just flat. I mean,
Well, I just wanted to say, repeating what Elaine said. To all these tier 1, 2, and 3, by our town manager, he went through this, so if, and I'm sure it was very thoughtful, I mean, because you had to make some decisions, so you were just kind of, as Melena said, skimming the low hanging fruit, just picking that off. So, yeah, I think it matters to, even if they're little cuts.
or what if it's the travel and training, I assume there's one big pocket of travel and training. I mean, I know it gets parceled out by different budgets, but the travel and training overall budget is flat and town staff
Prioritize.
works out where it gets distributed. Because I did see that the town clerk travel and training was actually, was it already decreased? I guess, I mean, I guess I agree with everyone that this is really hard and but, and it's not a whole lot, but I think we have to go through this budget and I do think the committees, I think to some degree, it's our role to try to make some of the tough decisions and own them. And, maybe, people, don't like us, but we have to own them.
So let me ask you a question then, Eric.
And then,
Okay. Typically, realistically, a lot of times we'll say, okay, we want only this percentage increase. What's our goal? Is our goal from go to 11 to 10? Is our goal from go 11 to 6? Is our goal, what is our goal? We have,
I think we talked about it and decided not to not to continue that conversation, but I agree. I think that the cost of it, living adjustment is 3%, right? So that just gives you an idea where maybe some of the retired people are for, with their income levels. And that people's expenses went up, groceries, heating bills, insurance, all of it, right? My suggestion would be 5%. I think that would be fair.
well, we're at 12.9 right now.
With that,
We're at 12.9.
yeah, that's what I mean.
Right.
I
Yeah,
know.
and if you're telling me, and I'm not advocating cutting positions,
yeah.
but if you're telling me we're gonna go from 12.9 to 5 without
Right.
cutting staff,
Right,
we're gonna have to sell a building.
yeah, maybe, so we'll do that.
Yeah.
So,
Because you know what, it's gonna be, next year, it's gonna get the same, it's gonna be the same conversation around this table, dealing with the same issues. Because we don't have the revenue piece, that's what's missing
You
here.
know, I agree. Eric and then Garfield.
Yeah, I guess, I understand what everybody's saying, and I agree with Ann, what you're saying also, and I think we keep jumping ahead a little bit, and I feel like tonight, I mean, I would love to see this at 5%. I don't think we're gonna get there, but I do think let's continue to have Mark go through each line, we get down there, and then my thought was that we would have like a straw vote of which ones we wanna move forward to, because I definitely want to hear all these. I do think we owe it to everybody to go through each and every single one. And then we see how we want to move along, kind of like, basically, I'm just repeating what we started out to do, but we just gotta listen to Mark, go through them, and then, I don't know if it's possible, do like a straw vote on which ones, because there's already a few that we just kind of went past that I don't necessarily agree with, but other people might, so that's, I guess, where I stand here, and I know at the end of the day, if we're not eliminating people, all these 400s and stuff does end up to being $250,000 or slightly less, right? If the 6 cuts is 278. And we take that from 5. I do understand that moves us to 11, but 11 isn't 12. And we're gonna get torched, whether it's 11, 12 or 8, so, but, that's, that's the process that we signed up for, I guess, so.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one I kind of would like to see us go over again. I think it's important that the department heads are here. But, and I remember I chastised you, Stephen, for this, but I have to say it now. I think it is our job and we have to give the appearance that we're working on and we are trying to make tax cuts. Not just think of what we think is fine, because there's, 7,000 more people out there. We don't know what they think yet. I know we're charged with making decisions, but you gotta think of those people, and you gotta think of the tax rolls and the people that don't have, and contracts got 400 people, and put 6.5 more on there. I just don't like it. I'd love to have us go over it again. I'd love to have the head here too as well.
So I believe that there's a table, Ally, that you're saying that if, the tax rate is X amount, this is what the effect would be on, an average taxpayer. Where was that? Tab 5. Because I was looking for that and, because I think what's missing is, what's the effect and kind of to Melena's point, what's our goal and, we're doing all these numbers, but what's actually going to be the impact on someone's tax bill? So I found that table really helpful.
Yeah, I did. I'll repeat that. So the 100,000.
But is that somewhere in?
No, it's not.
Oh.
It's not in your book. We can put this together and.
That would be really helpful.
So the $100,000 tier 1.
Well, no, I have that, but you were saying there was something in this budget that talked about.
I think you take the median home value and you
I
multiply.
think there's something in here.
Yeah.
Where,
Sorry, in here, it's a tab 5.
yeah, where's?
Yeah, this is that big printout too, that they handed out today with the adjusted numbers.
Okay, so it's just.
It's actually the sheet that we got a new one today. Yeah, that sheet. Because it fixed the percentage point.
Mark data has these 3 columns.
Yeah.
What it means for the tax.
Oh, right.
So again,
I see, yeah.
$100,000 is 5 cents.
I see, yeah.
On the tax rate, 250 is 13 cents on the tax rate, and $500,000 is 25 cents on the tax rate.
And more, the total asset value, it includes all kinds of properties or only, residential?
Sorry, what was that?
Total assessed value.
Is the asset value, is it residential only or is it all?
Yeah.
All.
Sorry, I was reading.
It has to be all property, right? And that's.
Yeah, we don't have a split tax rate.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be all, it's gonna be commercial will be included in it.
There's
Okay.
some. Yeah, but wasn't there something that said like the average median household, this is what it would be?
Yeah, where was that?
Yeah, there was actually something that translated that number into what it would look like on a bill.
Yeah, so
That's what this is.
This is right here, the table, yeah.
So I
You
can.
just read the top line, that's what it is.
Right, so at the median tax bill, if we go with the 11.2% increase, it would increase by 685.
I can give you the numbers for the median tax bill for these recommended cuts, the 100, 250, 500.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
So $100,000 tier 1, median tax bill then is $6,776.62.
6,776.
6,776.62.
62, okay.
When we hit tier two, 250,000. Median tax bill is $6,743.64. When we hit tier three, $500,000, the median tax bill becomes $6,688.67.
And can you tell us how much the increase is? You must have that.
Percentage-wise?
Yeah. you must
Do
have
you mean
that.
the dollar sign?
The dollar, like it's going up $400 from.
I don't have
You
my calculator on me
that?
tonight.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like for the 100, for the tier one, it's $3. Am I getting the math right, Mark?
So the 100, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
Phil, I didn't catch that.
Wait, I think Mark had it though.
No, no,
So
it's,
the 100
I'm sorry, it's $23, yeah.
What is it?
Okay, so the $100,000 category is $663.63.
Yep. Oh, 663, okay. That, okay, an extra 663, okay.
$250,000 category, $630.65.
Okay,
$500,000 tier three category, $575.68.
okay. All right,
That's what it goes up.
that's how much it would go off from
Anything's over
That changes that adjustment.
the operating, yeah. The P-80
And
discussion.
more, do we know what is the, what is gonna be the tax from the fire district?
That's just operating here, yeah.
We don't.
I got
Do you know that?
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, do we know what is, what is proposed by the fire district? Because that that makes things worse there. We don't know.
Okay, so this is just,
Okay. Right.
So just without getting into whether I agree or disagree, if we don't do salaries, which is fine, then tier three really becomes tier two because salaries are 50% of that cut.
Right,
So then tier three actually becomes just the 250.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not bad.
It saves $50 on the median tax bill for a median value, single family home.
yeah.
250,000 cuts $650.
Yeah, so that, I mean, that's why I kind of was getting to, like, if you put in that perspective, it's like $50 and then, you know, the amount of, you know, possible staff or effect on services, to try to bring it down to that.
So
I
do
think
we,
that's important.
do we want Mark to continue to go through these tier three cuts?
Yes.
Yeah,
Good, go Mark.
And I'm sorry, just to make sure I heard correctly, that the tier two cut of $100,000 is about $50 off the median tax bill. Is that correct?
Tier two is 250,000.
yeah, so that's the 250,000.
No, I'm sorry. So I meant yeah, so tier two, 250,000 cuts, how much off the median tax bill?
$55.
Okay, thank you.
I think we left off on the conservation, land, maintenance and trail line. $4,000.
Well,
Conservation.
Yeah.
Moving on down, the next line in tier three is planning and community development, $10,000. Chris, do you have any? Do you have any questions on this?
Yeah, what is that?
We use it, we already talked development services, which original planning.
Is that consultation? Like,
Yeah.
some of the consultation.
we're right that we just talked about.
So is that grant rating or is that, like, is that grant rating? Is that good? Yeah.
Could include
This
grants.
is for the grant.
Right.
So it could impact potential revenue streams to help fund other projects.
Could, there's no telling. You know, I just, you'd have to manage other things, you know, to be up to each department, I think, prioritize what
All right.
best strategy is.
Moving on down to buildings and grounds training, $20,000. This is additional trainings we'd like to provide public works staff this year that would have to be eliminated. Keep going. Okay, just stop me if anyone has a question. Police additional equipment, $3,000. Police travel training, $2,000, and fire travel training, $1,000.
Can you scroll down, Mark, on the page? Thank you.
Is Adam still on the call, by any chance?
Yes, he is.
Can you speak to what that additional equipment line is?
I think it was the bike.
Oh, that's just the e-bike?
Oh, right.
I think that's what I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
It was an e-bike.
I think bug was 5,000.
I love the e-bike idea and
Adam,
my
go-
husband's gonna get.
Adam, go
it,
ahead.
but-
You're gonna buy a cheaper.
Yeah, or we get an e-bike.
Additional
Say that
equipment, to the e-bike. If not, it'd be just miscellaneous flashlights, batteries, things of that nature.
Services. Additional equipment again. $500.
Just slightly slower so we can get to the page. Thank you.
Moving now to the building department. Property, security and safety, $2,400. This is the line that our building department has built into their budget for securing a property if needed. We haven't used it in a few years, but it will not be available to us if we need it this coming.
Can I ask, what does it mean to secure a property, like when it's condemned?
There's an
or-
issue. Yeah.
Oh. Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's not gonna be done, it's just that we won't have a.
Well, it won't be done
item
if we
for it. I
can't
mean,
afford to pay for it.
if we had to board it up, we could find it.
No.
Joe
This
will
is
take
the only
care of it.
budget we have for that purpose.
And you said we
It
haven't
hasn't-
used it?
It
in a
hasn't been
while?
used in a few years. Which is why in tier 3, it was tier 2 and 3, it became kind of, we're taking a.
So I guess this would be like what was used, say, for the Housatonic School or Meadow Street. There's
Meadow
also-
Street is a perfect example.
Right,
That's
yeah,
the last
that's
time
the
I
house
believe it was
has
used.
been about ready to fall over and.
There were people entering the home, we boarded it, secured it.
Cook's
For
garage,
town,
maybe.
for town-owned buildings, we can sometimes rely on public works.
Okay,
That's why I was kind of
Line,
wondering.
like when the Houstonic School was owned by the town, I think we relied on public works to board it.
okay.
Yeah.
But if it's a nuisance property that we do not control,
Okay.
we can't do that, we need to tap it.
Can we just make the line slightly lower? Will it still be effective or do we need to?
The cost of plywood now, it's probably,
What it is.
yeah, I think this number is probably outdated by at least 5 years anyway, so.
So this is one of those line items that would go to free cash if we don't use
That's
it.
exactly what happens every year. Well, since the Meadow Street files.
Yeah.
Moving on to animal control. 500, 400, and 250 for professional services, supplies and travel. Again, believe this clears out those categories, but, the lines that haven't really been used all that much. Haven't amount to much either, but. DPW highway, the next department. Equipment maintenance and repairs, 3,000. Mechanic tool allowance, 10,000. Street and bridge maintenance and repairs, 30,000.
So can I just stop you there for a second, Mark? Just the mechanical tool allowance, that was what Joe spoke on about how somebody, we were lucky enough to get a mechanic and they brought their own tools in, right? But we wanna make
Yes.
sure the town has their own at a certain point.
Yeah.
That's that line,
Right.
yeah,
Our mechanic leaves tomorrow or without
without anything.
tools.
Or you just hire a mechanic for tools, because most mechanics do heavy equipment.
If you're gonna
Trucks.
speak, you're gonna speak, you have to come to the.
Just saying.
Continue.
That eliminates the whole request.
Yeah.
That eliminates the-
That's the entire notice, correct?
Okay, so, okay.
DPW highway police details, $4,000.
Where?
Travel
Okay.
training, $3,500. Moving on to health department. Again, travel training and supplies, just minor reductions, 400 and 300. I need to scroll down here for those participating at home. Council on Aging is the next category. Transportation, $10,300.
And what would that entail cutting?
It's used to pay, if we don't have repair money in a transportation grant, we need to repair a vehicle, I come out of there. If it's cut, hopefully we can rely on grants. This is, can be an important match towards grants, to be able to say, look, we're providing some funds towards that purpose.
That's a tough one.
So I'm sorry, so can, where is this? This is transportation coming 10,000 and that's out of,
That's the whole budget.
That's council on
Council on
Aging.
Aging.
Yeah, so I know there's no tier one or tier two, like, would you recommend even doing half of it, or is it pretty much all or nothing?
can I just actually, can I ask some
I mean, I know it's
clarification?
not a perfect world, but I'm just, I just noticed that you didn't kind of do half in tier one or a portion in tier two. Whereas you did that, let's say, for DPW highway or actually you didn't do it for that one, but
For a
for.
well-functioning senior transportation program, it's difficult to operate without that.
Yeah.
I don't feel comfortable touching that line.
And you had a question?
Yeah, so in the council on aging budget, the repair line is 5,000. But in fiscal year 23, we used 450, and this year so far, we've used just under 1,000. The transport, so it's not repairs, it's the transportation line, which is, we've already used 7,000, so. Yeah, I think I'm not clear what that's for, and it's making me nervous because we.
We can.
Yeah, no, I mean, Yeah.
Joan, if you'd like to speak, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry, I hit the button, my bad. Lots of hit buttons, okay. So.
The equipment repair and maintenance is like the coffee machine, the equipment in senior.
Oh, I see,
It's
that's not
really-
transportation
it's
equipment, I
transportation.
see, I understand.
But any repairs and transportation is under the transportation line.
And this, how come that in 2023 we spent only $900? Was something changed?
It didn't
I don't know.
Something didn't
The
break.
vehicles ran really well, I don't know, so.
Okay, is it just because the vans are getting older or?
That's
It's a
been,
big- it's a
that's
big
been a
jump.
budgeted, that's been a safe budgeted amount for years.
Okay,
Ever
but
since-
some years you just didn't use it. What you're saying.
Yeah, it would close to free cash and.
Okay.
Moving on. Again, I just want to be clear. None of these are really our true recommendations. We don't want to see any of these.
Right, yeah, I just understood. Yeah.
COA activities, $3,200. No one feels good about that either.
Yeah.
No.
No. Travel training, 300. Again, that's just a even spread across departments. Veterans Affairs, American Legion lease and VFW lease. The request from the VFW this year was actually increased, the Great Barrington VFW was actually increased by $8,400. I wasn't able to recommend the increase, but I did recommend level funding in our original budget. Tier 3 eliminates subsidies to both, eliminates the subsidy altogether for both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't feel good about that one either.
Moving on to the library budget. $300 for office supplies and $2,000 for subscriptions.
So a slight reduction in office supply.
The subscriptions, I guess that can go to anything, that is a separate line from the ebooks, as Madonna was saying, correct? Yeah,
It's a separate line.
separate line.
Moving on to parks. There are 2 lines impacted parks improvements and youth programming. $10,300 and $30,000. And I want to just mention that the youth programming line, from what I understand, attendance has been very low at those, the summer programs. It's the only reason that they tier 3, tier 2,
And it's not a wipeout of the line.
No.
Right.
No,
It's only
Essentially, yeah, so there's three elements to that. There's the Housatonic playground, and those 5 days a week.
Mhm.
That budget for that is $25,300. The Parks Commission is toyed with eliminating that, and they'll, Steve probably can, for that, because it's so sparsely attended even with advertising. The second piece of it is the skate park, through, Rail Street Youth Program. They do 17 days before school vacation, they do 65 days during school vacation, and do 14 days after school vacation, most of the weekends outside the summer vacation. That's $38,000. It basically employs 2 people for most of the time. And then it also contributes to staff member.
And what do they exactly do in the skate park?
Well, what they do is they provide programming for the kids, and watch the kids and make sure things are taken care of.
And I see the kids in the park all the time without anybody. They seem to be fine. These people are in a skate park.
I mean, is that a well-attended?
It is rather well attended, you know, if you're looking at maybe we don't do it, maybe we do it during school vacation. Before school vacation is worth $6,700, school vacation is $25,000. After school vacation, at Columbus Day is $5,500. The third piece of it is Lake Mansfield. We do Memorial Day to the end of June, weekends, and that's $6,000 for 10 days. And then we do July 1st through Labor Day weekend, 64 days at $40,000.
Is that lifeguarding or program?
Lifeguarding, swimming lessons.
Yeah.
So lifeguarding involves 3 lifeguards.
Okay, so.
You have 2 on a top.
So.
So, I'll answer your question, Mark.
Yes, thank you.
So I guess let me just follow up with you, Joe, for 1 second. So this 30,000, I got a little confused on, the 30,000 basically just the programming for the Housatonic Park, because it's so sparsely plus or minus a little bit. It doesn't affect the skate park, which is highly used. This number is strictly basically for the.
Again, I'm not sure who really decides that.
Okay.
Commission.
Yeah.
They'll decide that stuff.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Mark? Joan, go ahead.
Thank you. So I just wanted to, I'm Joan from the Senior Center. I just wanted to talk about the couple things for the COA. Looking at activities. So activities pay for the instructors that run classes at the Senior Center. I just wanted to give you a point of reference of what that line is.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
Yeah, we have that. Thank you. Moving into boards and commissions. Another $1,000 reduction for the historical commission, $1,000 for the transportation committee. And that's, that includes the ops
Does
reduction.
anyone remember why the historical commission went up from 7,000 to 10,000?
I know someone who does. Why did the historical commission go from 7,000 to 10,000?
In the original budget.
Just come with the mic, please.
I'm sorry, I just didn't write it down, so I don't remember.
Okay, we got an extra 7,000 came in, is that what you're?
No, so last year's budget, fiscal year 24, the town approved 7,000 for your budget. You did request 17,000 from Mark.
No, that's the historical commission.
Commission, yes, that's what I'm asking about, yeah. But 10,000 was in the original.
I'm with the historic district.
I know.
Commission, okay, but I know also.
Okay, I'm just,
to
I
work-
can't remember.
I know
what
that
it's
the
for.
additional money is to do, some interaction with the archives that are up in top of the Ramsdell Library. And to do a display probably down at the Historical Society, which is the Wheeler Farm on South Main Street. It's a start at how to use our archives up there, what's important, and to show people what's there. And it was part of the whole there's a future budget issue coming up with the archives
Right.
that are up in the top of the library. I'm not telling you, that's an initial, what do we do up there? How do we handle it? How do we deal with it?
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, what's our next move?
Anybody want to take anything?
Yeah, anything you
off
wanna
this
keep,
list?
yeah, I'll go keep her off, which is the best.
I got several starred that I would like to take off this list.
Make a motion.
I would like to make a motion, to remove the technology software license from the cuts list. I'd like to remove the economic development, earmark, or monies off of the list, which is $10,000. I would like to remove the COA transportation 10,000 off the list. I would like to move the COA activities for 3,200 off the list. I would also like to remove both the Veterans Affairs lines, American Legion and the VFW lease off the list. And I probably don't even have to say this, but I would also like to move the salary line off the list.
Do you have a second?
I'm a second for discussion.
Okay.
Let's discuss them.
I'm not sure, all right, well, what's off the list?
I don't want to make those cuts. I don't want to ask the town to make those 6 cuts, 2, 4, 6. I don't feel comfortable with those 6 cuts. I don't necessarily feel comfortable with any of them,
Okay, so.
but it's, I wanna
like-
take, I want to keep those numbers in our budget.
Okay, can you do that again? Cause I was thinking the
Yeah.
opposite. when you were
So-
going through this.
I want to stay, let me put it this way, I want to stay funding these.
Okay, let's do
Okay,
that.
so
Yeah,
I want to stay funding the software license line for
Okay.
15,000.
Okay,
I want to stay funding the economic development line for 10,000. I also want to stay funding the COA transportation line for 10,300. I also want to fund the COA activities line for 3,200. I would also like to fund the American Legion lease line for 23,000. I would also like to fund the VFW lease line for 21,600. And I would also like to stay funding the salary line for 278,350.
So we have a motion and a second discussion.
So I think what you suggest, we are basically looking at a cut of $179,700.
Is that what you
Yeah, yeah,
So, and-
that would be the net from it.
That would be the net.
Yeah, yeah.
Richard?
So I agree with most of what you were saying, but I just had a question because I think I've forgotten exactly what the 15,000 in software license, I thought I understood. Short-term, no, I think we need to keep that.
Darko,
No, I just was wondering, this is a 278.30, so in other words, you want to keep the salary on the people, but we won't be cutting 9.48.
That's right, not to cut.
Not to cut.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I agree with that. Yeah.
so I have on the list in addition to Eric, which I agree with you. The street and bridge maintenance, rather than take the 30 off, I was looking at, going at least to tier 2, so we had something. I think there was an argument that if we cut that entire line. This is the DPW highway, the street and bridge maintenance. So you were saying to go with the 30,000 cut, and I was kind of looking at least keep the tier 2. And Joe, is that helpful, or is that just?
Question.
This is, the recommendation is to take the $30,000 off the DPW street and bridge maintenance repairs. And I was saying, it's basically cutting that entire line, and I was saying to meet it halfway and go with the tier 2 recommendation, which was 17,500.
A good portion of the bridge and maintenance line item that would increase, because we have a wooden bridge in town
Oh, okay,
that has never been maintained.
okay,
That's $40,000. It was $40,000 requested addition. That helps maintain that.
okay.
Ended up fine.
So if we met it halfway and did the 17,000, is that just, but it's not even worth it, I mean, okay, so.
It will be something. Yeah, I mean, we mentioned those steps to the requirement every year.
But something that's worth,
Yes.
that was one question I had, and. Oh, and then okay, you had the property security and safety in, right?
Yeah.
2400 or?
No.
No, okay, that's the one that we could, board up any properties that, and we could figure that out.
That was the one I also had a question. on. I
Yeah.
would leave that in myself.
I had that leaving in because, you know, I would just kind of amend that to leave that in addition to everything else Eric said. And then I am worried about the $30,000 cut to the street and bridge, so I would kind of ask to maybe meet that halfway.
So there's a motion and a second.
Yeah, I'm just discussing.
So, right.
So I just,
So do we want to vote on this and then you can make another motion, Lee?
sure.
Okay, so all in favor of Eric's motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Alright.
Against?
Oh, so I don't even get my. Wait, do you guys know what you're doing? I was gonna add.
We're doing Eric's and then we'll do a motion for adding yours.
Oh, okay, you're
Yeah,
not gonna do.
That's what I.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's correct.
First?
Huh?
Shouldn't we vote first?
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I would say this.
Oh, okay, so I have to add.
But we should vote on should we vote on the same motion
It would be,
first?
helpful, but I haven't finished because Lee hasn't voted.
Maybe they ought to do their
No,
second
no,
motion.
because I'm gonna add my own.
Yeah, but you're adding your own.
I would just.
Can everyone hold on a second, please?
Yes.
Okay, Lee, if you vote no, that means you're not in favor of these staying in.
Oh, so I can add, I'm
You
in
can
favor
still
and then add, okay,
Right.
yes.
So 5-0 that passed. Do you have a motion now? Oh, no, let the finance committee.
No,
vote.
we
No, we
In favor of that.
Okay, would like to, stay with Eric's recommendations and add, the following in terms of keeping these
Okay,
recommendations.
so Eric says nothing to do with it because we already
Oh,
approved
okay.
it. just-
So I would also like to keep, at the DPW highway, street and bridge maintenance, I would like to keep it at 17,200, which is tier 2.
So you want to add 12,800?
Yeah, yes. Does that make sense? Yes,
To the cut amount.
to the cut.
Yeah.
No, let's do this the same way.
That's-
Let's not do cuts now. Let's
Okay.
continue how much we're keeping.
Okay,
Okay.
Because if we start doing
Okay,
cuts in the last
keeping.
one,
Call it keeping.
yeah,
Got
yeah.
it.
So did you move to keep
I
17,200?
yes, I would move to keep 17,200 in that line item. And I would also move to keep the $2,400 in the property security and safety line.
Do I have a second? Okay, we have a second. Discussion.
It's hard to argue those two things, but I think I would remove the 24 still. I mean,
Just the fact that it's the only budget for these kind of projects, right? So if it's a, you know,
Dilapidated.
dilapidated dilapidated property that we don't own, we have no other way of kind
Yeah.
of boarding up that property, and it just stays as a safety risk for.
Yeah, and it's just, it affects neighborhoods and
Yeah.
families and people and
It just-
say, oh, sorry, we can't board it up.
It seems like it really has a
I
big.
worry that's a safety
big larger
hazard.
effect for a relatively.
Sounds like it's
small-
safe.
Yeah, I think it's a safety hazard. I mean, that's my,
I think that.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt for a minute. I'm unable to stay on the Zoom call, so I'm gonna have to leave. So,
Thank you, Phil.
I'll catch up with Ann. Thank you.
Motion and a second by Lee, and that motion was to leave in property security and safety and street and bridge maintenance repairs at 17,200. All in favor?
Hi.
No,
I'm sorry, what was it, Kirk?
no,
I ain't got to know yet. I thought you said, all in favor, I asked. You're not in favor? I couldn't understand. you. Okay, so 4-1, that passes. Okay, anyone else on the select board?
The total cuts, if I can just mention,
Yeah.
are 123, 350.
After both votes.
Is that what you got, Malone?
when,
One.
Yeah, I think it was, I had it like 175, I didn't add the.
and that's not
Right, I
much.
think that's down to 2 months.
No, that's not. Okay, finance committee, go, whatever you'd like to do.
Just do.
I'll make a motion for the finance committee for the initial keeps from the select board as well as the second vote on keeps from the select board.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote, Donna? Aye. Melina?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just, but this isn't the final.
No, it's not.
Same thing, so.
Okay, what else do we want to do tonight? Dinner never arrived, so.
I think,
Do you have a tally on what we cut off the capital?
yeah, I think,
That's what it is. I
Oh,
no.
basically added back in all the things that you.
Oh, that 123.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay. So that's where we are.
Oh, hold on, are you talking about capital, or you talking about?
no, no, no.
No, I was talking before.
She's
that.
talking about capital.
I'm talking about capital. So in
No.
addition to this,
Yeah.
we have a tally just to
Oh, I do.
go home and feel like we achieved something.
Well, no, but most of that doesn't affect the operating.
Right,
Yeah,
it's
but
not
at least,
affect the
you know, we
operating.
can say that
budget.
we
That we're.
Well, we'll
preventing-
Yeah,
Because
that
it was-
we're looking at.
So my understanding is that we brought the capital budget down to 5,208,684. To be borrowed would be 4,926,000.
Okay. I mean,
Pretty
it's
good.
gonna affect us anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot less than
Substantial,
the original.
Substantial.
All right.
So,
Okay. Citizens
mean-
speak?
I guess, I just want to say, I know we've worked hard so much tonight, but I just want to appreciate the town staff who I can't imagine what we went through the last few days putting this together. I actually didn't think it was possible, but okay.
Yeah, we appreciate all their work. Okay, citizens speak. Media time. We are adjourned, but you know, consent. Thank you, everyone.